My name is Bill Maitland. I am an assistant state attorney in Jacksonville, Florida, the #2 man in the office that prosecutes wrongdoers. A few months ago, my life took a strange and chaotic turn. Kissing my boss, Austin Edwards, in front of his mistress wasn't exactly part of my plan for the day, but somehow it happened. And to be honest, I'm not sure what shocked him more, the lipstick or my audacity. Meanwhile, my marriage is crumbling. My wife, Debbie, is slipping away, and my personal life is spiraling into absurdity. Now, with everything falling apart, I'm trying to keep my head together while running a chaotic office and trying to untangle the mess I've made of my life. Riding the Tiger. Thursday, July 21st, 2005, 9:30 a.m. I will never forget the look on Austin D. Edwards' face, also known as the big man, when I stepped back from him. He sat in his large chair behind a fancy blonde wood desk, staring at me like I was someone completely unfamiliar. As if he could not believe what had just happened, he reached up with one finger and touched his lips, where I had just given him a quick kiss. Behind me, I heard a soft giggle. I turned to see Edward's secretary, Myra. She stood with her arms crossed, possibly to support herself or just to enhance her appearance. Before entering Edwards's office, I had stopped to borrow her dark red lipstick. Without asking any questions, she handed it to me with a smile as I said, "Don't ask any questions, just watch." I then walked into Edward's office, where people often wondered how he managed to stay active and healthy even though he was in his early 60s. He looked up and said, "Welcome back, stranger. I hope you noticed that the building is still standing. We made it without you for 1 week. It was tough, but—" He stopped when I stepped behind his desk, turned his chair, and gave him a quick kiss. We looked into each other's eyes, and I had to fight the urge to laugh. I only intended a light peck. When I pulled back, I noticed the lipstick on his lips. I glanced at Myra, and she started giggling again. Her laughter made me smile. For the first time, especially since my marriage ended, I felt a hint of jealousy. I wondered what it would be like to have a relationship free from past issues. Edwards, my friend and mentor, had been through his fair share of relationships, and I found myself thinking about starting fresh. I had been in love before, but with changes ahead, I felt ready to explore new opportunities. However, Myra was connected to my boss and married friend, who already had someone special in his life. I doubted he would welcome my interest in Myra, even if I found the courage to act on it. There were clear consequences when someone moved too close to a boss's territory. Reluctantly, I pulled my gaze from Myra and looked back at Edwards. At least he seemed to be breathing normally again. The room was quiet until he said, "I know I asked you to change your luck, Bill, but I never expected you to change this much." "What can I say, Dallas? I've realized I have a long-standing enjoyment of your company. Why don't we ask Myra to step outside for a few minutes so we can chat?" I tried to keep a serious look while Edwards looked surprised. Then Myra burst into laughter, almost losing her balance. At least if she fell, it would be on something soft. Finally, I smiled, and Edwards got the joke. He glared at me for a second, but then he couldn't hold back his laughter. "You had me fooled! Where did that come from? I've known you for 10 years, and I didn't think you had a sense of humor." I pointed at his face. "You better wipe that smile off before someone walks in and starts spreading rumors, boss." "Sorry, I couldn't help it. I promised myself I would thank you when I got back. That's what makes you a great boss. You know what I need even when I don't." He stared at me as his laughter faded, then looked at Myra before turning back to me. "You had a great time, didn't you? A gentleman doesn't speak about such things." I turned to Myra. "Am I impressive or what?" She looked at him with admiration. "You are very impressive." He blinked and said to me, "I'm glad you had fun. Are you okay now?" "Not entirely. I'm better than I was, but I still need to get divorced, and I might be a bit on edge for a while. Please give me some space if I seem off. Of course, just don't hide away in your office like before. Anyway, there's no time to relax. I have something I need you to take care of. I trust your judgment." "I've just been back for an hour and a half, and I haven't even grabbed my bag from my place. You want me to work already?" "Why do you think I pay you well?" I let him explain, and I made a fast decision on what to do. There really wasn't much choice. But now I have to talk to a very unhappy man about some sad news. Just 2 hours ago, I held a lovely woman and enjoyed the moment, feeling like nothing else mattered. Now, I was back to the reality of life. This was my real world. The other was a fleeting dream. I walked toward the elevator when Myra stopped me with a gentle hand on my shoulder. I turned, and she was standing very close. It felt like I was wrapped in her warmth. I froze a bit, not expecting this. I looked over her shoulder to see if the boss was watching from his office, but he wasn't. "What is it?" I asked, my voice sounding a bit off. "Can't a friend give another friend a warm welcome back to work?" "Not this kind of welcome, Myra. We've known each other for over 5 years, and we've never been this close. Why? Just think differently, Bill. I can't help who I am. I've missed you. Everyone here has missed you. I'm happy you took that cruise. I can see a change in you already. She must have been a wonderful person." I stared at her in silence. "You're not someone who jumps into things quickly. You look a bit tired from everything you've been through. Anyone who could break through your walls and make you this happy must have been special. Are you going to see her again?" I shook my head slowly. "No, it's not possible, but she is very special. How can you be both so lovely and so smart?" "Being lovely doesn't mean being less smart, even if some may think that." We stood there for a moment, and she took a small step back. "I'll see you around, Mr. Maitland." While I waited for the elevator, I thought about her words. It might be a good thing that I might not be working here after today. If I kept my job, I wasn't sure what I would do about Myra. She and Edwards weren't married, but there was a bond between them. I couldn't keep trying to get close to someone else's partner. Thursday, July 21st, 2005, 10 a.m. She peeked into his office, but he wasn't there. She stepped out and walked to where 4 secretaries in the humanities shared a common area. "Is Professor Abbott around or in class?" The secretaries exchanged looks, hesitant to answer. She waited until the silence grew too loud, and finally one of them said, "His class just ended. He'll be waiting for his next class shortly." When Debbie didn't move, an older woman added, "Take the hallway to the right, go past the next 2 hallways and turn left. It will be the first door on your left." Professor Abbott had his back to her, writing on the whiteboard as she walked in. A few male students leaving glanced at her, but she chose to ignore them. "I appreciate being on time, but please give me a few minutes. Wait outside while I—" They shared a look for a moment. "Hi." She hesitated, but finally approached him and lightly brushed against him. He smelled like Old Spice, a classic scent that suited him well. "Thank you." "What for?" "For being kind and respectful." "I'll take any compliment I can get, but honestly, I was just busy." "I know, but you didn't treat me like an object. I'm used to people focusing only on looks and not seeing me as a person. I really appreciate how you respect me. And just to be clear, it wasn't just an invitation to my home. I wanted someone there with me. I never knew how big and lonely that place feels when it's just me." "I understand, Debbie. I've been there too. At least your husband and your kids are still in your life. You may not live together now, but they are still there for you. You can call him and remember what he looks like. Think about how it would feel if he were gone and you could never tell him how you feel or share important moments about your kids. Even though you're divorced, you still have 2 children. Elise and I didn't have children. I never got the chance to say what I needed to. Maybe you won't believe it, but you're in a better spot." She shook her head. "If this is being lucky." Then she looked at Abbott and thought about what he said, trying to picture a world without Bill. Like Clarice, gone and unable to enjoy their kids or their future grandchildren. They might not always be friendly, but at least they were alive to hold those memories. She pressed her hand to her lips and stopped herself from crying. "You know, you should think about being a therapist. Talking to you, Professor Abbott, I either feel better or see things in a new way. I'm not expensive. Since you don't have anyone at home, how about dinner with me tonight? I found a great Thai restaurant on Bay Meadows. I love Thai food, especially the spicy kind. And if you're interested, we could go to a nearby place for a drink. How does that sound? You know I'm not in a good place right now." Feeling very hurt. He stepped closer and took her hand. "Did I ask you to spend the night with me?" "No, but if we keep seeing each other, I will want more one day. I'm not judging anyone's choices, but getting involved with Doug Baker right after your marriage ended was not the best idea. What can I say? That's how people see me. My mother-in-law thinks so, and most people here think the same. I'm not saying you're that way. I'm just saying that ending a long relationship and quickly getting involved with someone else can make things more complicated. You need time to heal after a marriage. It seems like you didn't give yourself that. My experience was hard, and it took me a long time to move on and form a healthy relationship. That's all I mean. Look, Debbie, I'm not in love with you. I don't know you well enough for that. I might never feel that way because liking someone doesn't always mean it'll grow into something more. I know I like you, and maybe someday I'd like to be closer. But for now, let's keep it simple like dinner and a few drinks. Then I'll drive you home. There's no hurry unless the world ends tomorrow. If this is a new way to flirt, you should write it down. You could make a lot of money selling it. But yes, I would like to have dinner with you and enjoy being away from home for a bit. Abbott let go of her hand just as students started coming in for his next class, but she noticed the first murmurs of excitement. Great. More fuel for the campus gossip. She didn't mind it that much. She faced the students, took a deep breath, smiled, and walked slowly out of the classroom, enjoying their gaze as she left. She wouldn't be here for long, so she shrugged off their opinions. Thursday, July 21st, 2005, 10:15 a.m. I entered the conference room where two men were seated at a long table, while one man stood at the other side of the room, right behind a man dressed in a prison outfit. Devin Thompson was the last of the Thompson brothers involved in a sad event that resulted in the death of an 80-year-old. Two of his brothers had already faced juries and received severe punishments. They might never see life outside a prison, spending most of their years behind bars. If there was a higher power, they would likely face what was coming to them while in prison due to fights with rival groups. Devin was due to go on trial on Monday. That was one reason I hesitated about going out to bond chance. I wanted to make sure everything was handled to prevent any chance of him avoiding serious consequences. Now he had disrupted the legal process. The man in a nice suit beside him was Anthony Smith, a lawyer around 40 years old with whom I had clashed in court several times. We didn't like each other much, but there was some respect between us, and he fought hard for his clients. Unfortunately, many weren't the most trustworthy, but lawyers often work with difficult cases. The man standing behind Devin was a bailiff named Charlie Case. He usually worked for Judge Herman Herring's courtroom, but was available for other jobs around the courthouse. Given the Thompson brothers' reputation, the authorities thought Case would be a solid presence outside the jail. I took a seat across from Devin, who slouched in his chair and checked his long fingernails. His hairstyle seemed old-fashioned, but he still maintained a certain look even in prison. If he were outside, he would have worn jewelry, but all that was left behind at the jail entrance. One noticeable gold tooth in the center of his mouth suggested he was someone important. His body language showed defiance, which everyone noticed. I opened a folder I had placed in front of me and pretended to read it. Then I looked up at Devin. So, you want to plead guilty to second-degree murder and accept a maximum sentence of 30 years? Is that right? He looked at me with a sneer and said, "Wow, you can read." I thought he was just another confused person like many others in this room. Smith gave him a tired look and shook his head as if dealing with a difficult child. Then he turned to me. "It's a simple deal, Maitland. He'll be guaranteed to spend 30 years in maximum security at Rayford. No parole was asked for or expected. He would be 56 by the time he got out, and any connections he had would be long gone. The people he worked with would have moved on. He wouldn't be a danger to anyone, at least not to the public. And you and the state will save maybe $100,000 or $150,000 in trial costs, appeals, and all of that. It's a win for everyone. Except for Marquez Douglas." Devin tried to give me a tough look. "Who is Marquez, and what does he have to do with me?" Smith looked at him with disbelief and disappointment before looking away. He understood how this conversation would go. "Marquez Douglas was the 80-year-old whose life was lost because of you. He was a kid who wore Spider-Man pajamas and dreamed of being an astronaut." For a brief moment, Devin seemed to show some emotion but quickly brushed it off, leaning back. "Well, the kid is gone now. Locking me up isn't going to bring him back. It was an accident. We had no idea anyone would get hurt." "So it was just an accident? You didn't mean for anyone to be hurt?" "No. Someone could get caught in the crossfire, but we were sending a message to those intruding on our territory. You almost sound like you believe that. But why should I be surprised, Devin? You're the one who runs the show. Nigel and Rashawn act as if they are in charge, but they depend on your lead. You've always been the one in control. So? I took out a tape recorder from my pocket, set it on the table, and pressed play. Yeah, we knew there were kids in the house. At least 2 or 3. That's why we targeted that back bedroom. We were told that's where the children slept. Why were you going after children? Why not focus on the adults who were involved? That's Devin. He thought maybe we'd hit 1 or 2 kids. It would send a stronger message than going after an adult. You can replace a dealer, and everyone knows that's part of the business. But if you hurt their children, it takes away their strength. That's what he thought. You take away their heart and send a warning to others. I switched it off. Devin recognized his brother's voice. That fool, my brother or not, I'm going to make him pay. Smith placed his hand on Devin's shoulder. When Devin glared at him, he matched it with just as much intensity. Calm down. Just listen for a moment. Then he turned to me. You know, Nigel might be planning to cut a deal by using his brother as a scapegoat, and the deal still makes sense. No deal. We go to trial. Devin shot up from his chair, pushing it back. He looked ready to leap across the table at me until Case placed a hand on his shoulder, reminding him where he was. We what? You can't do this. Not when I'm willing to cooperate. Tell him, Smith. You said he couldn't resist a deal. Smith looked at me and said, I don't understand how you can just ignore this, Maitland. You'd be putting a heavy load on taxpayers for what? To get back at someone who will be in prison for a long time? I shook my head. I can and I will. We're going to trial. You can't do that. As I said, I can and I will. I talked about it with my boss before I came here, and he'll support my decision. It's not about the money. Devin looked at me, clearly surprised. Then why? Because I want to make sure you serve your time completely. I don't want you to ever be free. I met his eyes and smiled. I want to make sure you never feel freedom again. I want you to experience a life that would challenge anyone. Your family is engaged in illegal activities, and I want them to be held responsible too. But if I must choose, I'd rather see you face justice first. I want you to face real consequences for the pain you caused others. You're a danger, and I want to make sure you don't pose one again. Devin stood up, seeming ready to come closer to me, but Case's firm grip held him back. He knew better than to challenge Case. Then, just like that, he relaxed and sat back down, smiling at me in a way that sent a shiver down my spine. All right, Mr. Maitland. You're set on seeing me convicted and everything that comes along with it. I'll have basic needs in prison and time will move on, but I'll be keeping an eye on the news. I'll know about anyone connected to you because I have my own contacts. And you can't keep watch over your family and friends all the time. Sooner or later, they will get involved because I'll have nothing but time to plan how to reach them. You think you're so strong. The angel of death. Nonsense. You're just a lawyer. You won't stop this, and I won't either because I have nothing to lose. I'll make you the last one to deal with. I want to see how you handle it when I take away everything you care about. If you falter, I'll send someone to take care of it. By the time I'm done, you might be grateful. He grinned again. Oh, I hear your wife is very appealing. Just because I don't mind you, before anything happens, I'll have a couple of friends visit her. One of them has some unique interests. I'll make sure you get a recording of it eventually. Anthony Smith just stared at him, unable to respond. Devin smiled at me again. You might be recording this, but who cares? You won't be able to prove I had anything to do with it, and even if you could, so what? They can't punish you more than once, and I doubt they'll even do it once. So, Mr. DA, Mr. Angel of Death, how strong do you feel right now? I sat there, keeping my expression calm. I wanted to show him that he hadn't unsettled me, even though I knew he was telling the truth. And the worst part was, he didn't need brilliant people working for him. As he had said, you can't watch over someone all the time. I looked up at Case, who was standing over Devin with a blank look. Case, put him in one of the special holding cells. No contact, no phone calls. Only you or someone you trust can talk to him. Case nodded and lifted Devin to his feet. Devin didn't fight back. He just said, "You can't keep me alone forever. I just need a moment with one of my own, and your family is in danger." I thought about telling Case to be tougher, but the holding cells were watched closely. I couldn't take that chance, and I couldn't ask Case to do anything more. Still, the thought was tempting. Smith rubbed his hands together after they left, looking away from me. "I'm sorry, Maitland. I didn't expect that. But he is truly dangerous, as bad as anyone I've met." I stared at him until he finally met my gaze. "Smith, I think you're a good man. Please don't take this the wrong way. If news about this gets out, and his friends find out about it, and I can't be sure it was Devin, I'm coming for you. If anything happens to my family, I'll hold you accountable no matter where you go. I hope you understand." He just nodded. "It's okay, Maitland. If it were my family, I'd do the same. I stand for these people, but I'm not just one of them." After I left, I went back to my office, sitting behind my desk and thinking about making a call. I knew the risks. Even in jail, others might get to him, and I needed to stay out of it. It felt like riding a tiger. I could ask a certain person for help, someone known for having a powerful reach who believed in a code that made him help others. But working with him would mean being in his debt, putting me in a situation I couldn't afford. I still had time to look for another way. For now, I had an errand that might turn out to be my last official act, as I could find myself in trouble within hours. Thursday, July 21st, 2005. Noon. "Thank you for seeing me, Evelyn." "It's nothing, Debbie. You've been my patient and friend for a long while. I'll send those blood samples to the lab today, and we should get results back in 48 to 72 hours, probably by next Tuesday or Wednesday. Now, what brings you here?" "It's hard to explain. I'm feeling a bit on edge. Some moments I feel fine, but then I suddenly want to cry. It's like I'm on an emotional roller coaster." Dr. Evelyn Kreider leaned back in her chair for a moment. Debbie felt their connection grew partly from their ability to laugh about life's oddities, including the trouble of talking to men about health issues. "Debbie, based on what we've been through together, I can be honest with you. What you're feeling is a normal response to the things you're dealing with. You're going through a divorce. Your daughter is upset and has moved out, and your son has also left. It's normal to feel overwhelmed during such a hard time." Debbie shook her head. "It's more than that. I can't fully explain it. I feel sad about my separation from Bill. Everything hurts a lot, but there's this heavy darkness inside me. I feel like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff, afraid I might fall. And I've been having those nightmares again." Evelyn sat up straight in her chair. "About Clarice?" "Yes, they seem to be more intense now. I'm not a therapist, but I can see why they might be coming back. I know, and it feels unbearable. Her life has changed for the worse, and it feels like I'm following a troubling path. I know things will get better eventually, but it's scary. Did you ever talk to Bill about what was happening with Clarice? About your feelings?" "No, I couldn't. He was always busy with work. There was nothing he could have done. I had to deal with it myself. It wasn't his responsibility." Evelyn sat back and looked at her. "Do you ever listen to yourself when you talk about Bill?" Debbie looked down at the examining table. "Yes. I realize there's something important. I'm the one leaving him. He hasn't done anything wrong to me. I was the one who became distant emotionally, even if I didn't show it until we had that argument. I understood that then, but I couldn't fully accept it. He's the one who got hurt. But I still feel anger sometimes. When your marriage is falling apart, you're not supposed to have strong feelings left. You're expected to feel numb, not to have resentment towards the person you're leaving. That's part of why I wanted to see if my hormones might be affecting me, messing with my mind. Honestly, I don't think it's hormones. There would be other signs. Usually, hormonal issues don't only show up emotionally, they affect the body too, and you don't seem to have any of those signs." "So you think I'm just losing it?" Evelyn reached out and took Debbie's hand. "I don't think you're going crazy. I think something is going on, and I believe you need to talk to a real professional." She let go of Debbie's hand, went to the supply closet, and returned with a business card. Debbie looked at the name and shook her head. "No, he knows Bill and works with him. I'm not ready to share all my thoughts with him. He's a good person and a true expert. I never mentioned this before, but a few years ago, Alan and I faced some difficulties too. It took a while, but I found clarity through him, and we managed to resolve our issues. He's a psychiatrist who has his own patients and isn't involved with the legal system. I don't know. Debbie, trust me. I'll reach out to him and try to set up a meeting for you this afternoon. You know something isn't right. If it's more than just seeing 20 years of your life fall apart, it might be good to talk to someone who knows how to help you sort through your feelings. Evelyn made the appointment for 5:30 p.m. As she left Kreider's office, Debbie couldn't shake the feeling that it might be a mistake. But maybe it wouldn't be. Thursday, July 21st, 2005, 12:15 p.m. I walked into the hallway where several offices lined the walls. It was lunchtime and most of the professors were out. I had checked to confirm this. Only one professor remained in his office, waiting for a call about an unpaid traffic ticket, which he said he knew nothing about. The secretary for him and two other professors sat at her desk, even though she was supposed to be on lunch. This was a bit of a problem. Carlos and Ernesto entered behind me and stood on the other side of her desk. She looked at us without showing alarm at first, but when she saw my expression, she reached for the phone. Carlos gently shook his head, stopping her from picking it up. She started to stand, but then sat back down, looking between us. I exchanged a glance with Carlos, who gave me a nod. I approached the first closed door and knocked lightly. I knocked again. "What is it, Carly? Is that you? I'm waiting on a call. Just come in." I tapped once more. The door opened, revealing Doug Baker. He looked at me for a moment in surprise, raising his hands as if to defend himself. But it was too late. I moved quickly, and my fist made hard contact. The force of the hit left him momentarily stunned. As he wavered, I followed with another strong punch that knocked the breath out of him. He stepped back unsteadily, and I caught his shirt to aim for another strike. I delivered 2 precise hits where I knew it would hurt the most, just like I had been taught. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to do next, but unexpectedly, he hit me with an elbow that caught me off guard and left me reeling. Pain shot through me as I tried to regain my focus. Red and white blurred my vision, and I instinctively shut my eye, feeling disoriented. It wasn't too difficult to see through one good eye. Luckily, I noticed the next punch coming and moved my head enough to avoid most of it. I felt a light hit on my forehead, which left a ringing sound in my ears as I fell back and tried to balance myself on a chair near the entrance of his office. He held his nose, which was hurt and bleeding, and said, "You broke my nose." A second punch caught me on the other side of my face, scratching my skin. He must have had something sharp. I remembered what Carlos and Ernesto taught me and raised my arms to block his next few punches. When he pulled back his right hand again, I caught his fist with the brass knuckles, and he cried out in pain. "Does that hurt? How about this?" He tried to recover and swung with his left hand, but I ducked and put my weight into a punch to his side, causing him to bend over. He stumbled back, so I followed with 2 more hits to his side, hoping to weaken him further. He attempted another swing with his left, but it lacked strength. I responded with a punch to his jaw that sent him falling backward over his desk, creating some space between us. I stood on the other side of the desk, watching him struggle to get back on his feet as he slid into the chair behind his desk. He sat there while I fought to stay awake against the pain in my face. Blood was coming from his mouth, possibly from his nose, and I hoped I had hurt him enough. He reached for his nose again, but winced in pain. Finally, he looked up at me. "It took you long enough to face me. I wondered if you would ever find the nerve to confront me. I've been with your wife for months, and you waited this long to act. You're weak." "You think I care about that? You should be more worried about what else you've done. She's likely been with others here too. You might want to get checked." His secretary appeared at the door looking scared. "Professor Baker, are you okay? I'll call security. Just stay away from me." She was asking Carlos and Ernesto to let her through. "No!" Doug shouted at her. "Don't call anyone. Just stay out of this. I'll deal with him." She let Carlos and Ernesto lead her away. He took a deep breath. "You only got the better of me at the awards ceremony because I was trying to be nice. I could have beaten you then. The only reason you're still standing is because of those brass knuckles. But they won't help you now. I'm going to teach you a lesson, old man." I motioned to him with my finger. "Why don't you come over here and show me what you can do?" He pushed himself up, clearly in pain, but managed to straighten up and walk around the desk. He was determined. I managed to avoid many of his attempts to hit me. He struggled to overpower me, mainly because his right fist seemed to hurt more than it hurt me. He pushed me against the wall, and when he hit my lip, it hurt a lot, and a hit to my eye made me flinch. I was thankful for my training because I could think clearly even as he came at me. I leaned slightly, and when he reached for me, I quickly jabbed his stomach several times. I could feel him shudder with each hit. Then, as he leaned closer, I bumped the top of my head against his face. He tried not to cry from the pain as he touched his nose and fell back onto his desk, landing on the floor. I leaned over to check on him, and when he looked up, hurt, but still standing strong, I smiled and said, "You never learn, do you? How many times will I have to teach you? Our country must have been in a tough spot if someone like you almost made it to the Olympics." He grimaced and tried to push himself up using his chair, but ended up sinking back to the floor. Taking a deep breath, he exhaled slowly and shook his head in disbelief. "I didn't think you had it in you, but why take this on yourself? My uncle is a DA up north. You could just make one call and I'd be out of the picture. You people in law always know how to get things done, but you really wanted to face me yourself, knowing the risks. Yes, I could have gotten rid of you. I still might. But I needed to confront you first." He took another deep breath and winced. I knew I had hurt him, and I was also feeling the effects of the confrontation. "Not that it matters now, but what's bothering you?" I looked at him, thinking about his confusion. "Why am I bothered? You shouldn't be upset with me. You let Debbie go. She thought you were being loyal, but if you weren't happy elsewhere, it means you weren't taking care of things at home. You have yourself to blame. A woman like that needs attention, and she wasn't getting it from you. You think I came here because of Debbie? Why else? You think I'm confronting you about what you did to Kelly? What did I do to Kelly? Don't play innocent. Debbie wasn't enough for you? The most attractive woman at UNF. You were in my home with her and involved with my 17-year-old daughter. She's just a kid. Oh no." He looked like he was trying to find a reasonable excuse. "I don't know how you found out, but nothing happened. Not really. You can ask Debbie." Debbie will confirm what happened? She was in the room while you were with our daughter? That idea hurt deeply. I decided any feelings I still had for her were going to fade away, but the thought that she would put our daughter in such a situation was too much to bear. "No, I don't know how you found out, but Debbie was late for a meeting. She left me resting in your bedroom. I woke up to find someone in the room and I thought it was Debbie. When I saw it was Kelly, I almost panicked. She must have come in during the night. As soon as I realized what was happening, I backed away. I'm not careless. Getting involved with the young daughter of a prosecutor is a risk I wouldn't take. You're just looking out for yourself. Talk to Debbie. She was getting something and was on her way back when she heard everything." That's a nice story, but BJ was home too. He heard the noise and the argument that followed. Why would she act that way if nothing wrong happened? He just sighed. She was right. Kelly has feelings for me. If I had stayed, who knows what might have happened. I'm only human. She's still a child. Come on, she's growing up. I wouldn't be surprised if she has interest in some of her teenage friends. Have you noticed how she's been changing lately? I felt anger rising and motioned for him to step out from behind the desk. "Come on out and let's talk this over." He shook his head. "I think not. Right now we seem to be at an impasse. If I get up, you might retaliate, and if you come closer, I might feel the need to protect myself. Why don't you just leave before someone comes to step in? Why should you care? I'm the one who could face serious trouble." "Because I'm moving on. I had a job offer in Chicago for a month, but I hesitated to take it because I wanted to stay with Debbie. Now that we're finished, I'm going for it. You already put my career at risk once at the awards ceremony. If this situation becomes public, it could hurt my chances even before I start my new job. I just wanted to get out of there without any more issues. I would talk to Debbie. If he was lying, I would find a way to confront him again. But something he said lingered in my mind. You're leaving town. You don't need to impress anyone. You wanted my wife, and now you're moving on. Why pretend to care for her? I do feel bad for you, Maitland. I really do. Yes, I wanted her, and I enjoyed our time together. If she had been ready to move with me to Chicago, I would have taken her. She knows that. I would have included your kids if needed. You really don't deserve her, you know that? She's wonderful and just needed someone who cared enough to spend time with her outside of work. You can blame me and her if it helps you cope, but you're on your own because you pushed her away. And you know why she wouldn't go with me? She said it wouldn't work, but that wasn't the real reason. She still loves you. There's no fairness in this. I wondered how he could be a professor at a state university and not see what was clear. If she really loves me, how could she move on with you? Tell me, Professor, what would she do if she didn't care at all? He just shook his head again. It's pointless. You both deserve each other. What's happening here? A man with dark hair stood in the doorway looking at us. I understood why he was curious. The office was a mess. I was upset. Doug looked out of sorts, too. Hey, man, just move on. Who are you? The dark-haired man asked Ernesto as the larger man moved closer. That's none of your business. Please leave. Ernesto reached out and grabbed the smaller man's shoulder, but in a quick move, the dark-haired man responded. And before I could react, Ernesto was kneeling, his wrist caught in the smaller man's grip. Wow, Ernesto said, trying to get free. The dark-haired man looked at him blankly, then turned his gaze back to the room, and I met his eyes. A strange feeling ran through me, but this time it felt different. It reminded me of when I faced a real threat on my own. This was not a typical situation. As I looked into his eyes, I recognized something that took me back years to when I had dealt with Bernard Van de Loon. De Loon had committed serious crimes in a small town not far from Palatka. When the jury said he was guilty, he stood up in chains and asked me to come closer. I walked across the courtroom, and while everyone watched, he told me that one day he would escape and I would see something awful. His words were scary, but the look in his eyes really sent a chill through me. It felt like he was showing a darker side beneath his calm facade. I wondered if this was what de Loon's victims saw in their final moments. For just a moment, I caught a glimpse of something unsettling in the eyes of this seemingly ordinary man. At the same time, Carlos stood before him with his hands out in a soothing way. Sir, please. I'm sorry for my friend. He is young and a bit hot-headed. He meant no harm. Please accept my apologies. Paul, just let it go, okay? The man looked up from Ernesto to Doug, who had a bruise on his face. It seems like things got out of hand here, Doug. Are you sure you don't want me to call security? Doug stood up from behind his desk and stepped next to me. Look, Paul, I know you've heard the stories about what happened a few months ago, about the fight and my situation with Debbie Maitland. Even at Duval, I know they're talking. My job has been on shaky ground ever since. I just got a new position at Roosevelt University. I will work in the Commerce and Enterprise section. It's a good job. If this gets reported, and if William Maitland, someone involved, gets in trouble, it will create a situation I can't handle. Please, just walk away. Paul looked at him, then at me. You're Debbie Maitland's husband. Why are you taking such big risks? She left you and you're putting your career on the line. That doesn't make sense. He spoke calmly, without any anger. Sometimes you make bad decisions when there are no good ones left. For a moment, deeper feelings showed in his voice. There is always a choice, Mr. Maitland. That's what makes us human. He glanced back at Doug and let go of Ernesto, who moaned and nearly fell if Carlos hadn't caught him. You need to see a doctor, Doug. And Mr. Maitland, please take care of yourself, too. I'm glad I didn't see anything and don't have to report it. Then he walked away. Carly was behind us, clearly worried. Should I call for help? No, I said. My friends and I will handle this. He looked at me. Do you want to explain this? Helping you with your new job? Carlos is a boxing coach and has treated more injuries than many doctors. You'll be fine. Finally, Doug looked at Carly and said, I'll be okay, Carly. We just had a small argument. Can you clean up the office? Keep the door closed. I had put the brass knuckles in my pocket and walked out, leaning a bit on Carlos, while Doug moved slowly with Ernesto beside him. He kept rubbing his wrist where Paul had grabbed him. Wow, I've never felt anything like that before. I might have hurt something. I need to get an X-ray. Who is that guy? Paul Donnelly, Doug said. He is the head of PR at Duval University. He often comes here for meetings with our team. I've met him and his wife at events. His wife is very pretty. He looked back at me. The difference is that Debbie isn't like that. I had to work on her. Paul's wife seems to look around a lot. It's strange that he hasn't seen it. He seems totally unaware. Carlos leaned in and whispered to me, "Did you see that too?" "Yeah. Paul Donnelly is a powerful man married to someone who isn't faithful. I'll remember that name. I have a feeling we will meet again. I hope for his wife's sake that we don't. Ernesto is strong and this man can be tough. Some people just have that strength." I thought to myself, yes, Paul Donnelly, I'll remember your name. Thursday, July 21st, 2005, 2 p.m. My name is Bill Maitland. I am the second most important person in the state attorney's office in Jacksonville. My boss is really focused on getting the governor's seat in Tallahassee. I handle the office on a daily basis. Right then, I felt like I had just come out of a tough situation. My face was a mess. My left eye was hurt badly before Dr. Gary Wells at the Shands emergency room looked at it and covered it with a patch. He gave me some medicine too. "You say you hurt your eye after bumping into a door? That must be one strong door." "It really got in my way," I replied firmly. He just shook his head. I had put away the 3 people who hurt his wife 8 years ago when they caught her leaving Shands early one Saturday morning. Wells had not forgotten that. He had remarried, but he still checked with me every few months to see how close those people were to facing the consequences of their actions. "People sure are creating some tough doorknobs these days," he said with a bit of sarcasm. "Anyway, I doubt that door damaged the bone around your eye, though there might be some small fractures that should heal by themselves. I'm pretty sure your eye itself isn't really hurt. You should come back in about a week for another check." He took a look at the rest of my face, which had bruises, cuts, and a couple of missing pieces from my lower lip. "The rest of it is minor. It will heal, and you won't scare little kids in about a week or so." He cleaned up my face with some smaller bandages and ointments and stepped back to assess his work. "You're lucky, Bill. That door could have taken your eye. There's a reason why boxing gloves are used in fights. That door was rough and had its own plans. You are fortunate. By the way, what happened to the other guy?" There was no one else around. "He got his nose broken a few times and probably won't be on magazine covers anymore. I think I hurt a couple of his ribs too, but it doesn't seem like he has any serious damage inside. A pro boxing trainer is helping him." "I'm glad you didn't cause him serious harm. I know things feel tough right now. When Sharon was gone, I didn't think I'd ever feel thankful to see another day. But now I've got Melissa and little Brad, and I'm grateful to wake up every morning. Things will get better, Bill." I just nodded. I was happy for him, but I was just starting to think about a life after Debbie. I managed to drive to Carlos's gym where he was working with Doug Baker. When I walked in, Baker and Ernesto were talking about the politics behind picking boxers for the Olympic teams. Baker looked at me with a frown and said, "I hope you heal up well. It hurts every time I breathe, and I wonder what my nose will look like. I might need surgery. And you hurt my hand." He held up his right hand, which was in a plaster cast. Carlos gave him a firm pat on the back and smiled as Baker flinched. "Don't be overly dramatic, Professor. This will give you character. Any woman who isn't okay with a broken nose isn't the right one for you." "Thank you, Carlos, Ernesto. I appreciate your support. And Doug, I want you to leave town. You say you have a job in Chicago. Don't stick around here. I want at least 1,000 miles between you and Kelly as soon as possible, got it? I'd prefer if you moved away completely. Just go. Please." I walked out. I really couldn't stand to see him for another moment. I hoped he would leave town. Thursday, July 21st, 2005, 2 p.m. "Come this way, Miss Bascom." Debbie followed the older woman into the office whose nameplate read, "Johnny August, Public Defender." She had met August before and knew many of the lawyers, judges, and courthouse staff during the 10 years that Bill had worked at the state attorney's office. As she entered, she gestured but then thought better of it, saying, "Please don't get up, Mr. August. I appreciate the kindness, but it's not necessary." August was a tall man in his 50s who seemed much younger. He looked a bit like a country boy who had grown older but not more serious. His hands seemed too big for his body, making him appear as if he should be enjoying a simple day outside, relaxed and happy. But it was all a front. He was an intelligent man who had graduated with high honors from Harvard and, before he lost his sight, was known to have read Plato in both Greek and Latin. Yet he had perfected the charm of a warm, friendly Southern man that kept getting him re-elected as public defender. He looked at her in a friendly yet slightly unfocused way, typical of adults who lost their sight later in life. He understood what things looked like and where to focus, but could only see blurred shapes. "Mrs. Maitland, it's a pleasure, Towel, not to see you, of course, but to sense your presence in my office." "It's Bascom, Mr. August." She tried to keep her tone steady, wanting to be polite to this man who had often made her feel vulnerable before. He had always liked her, she knew this, and it wasn't just about her looks. He appreciated a capable woman. He had treated her as if she had thoughtful ideas during the courthouse events she attended with Bill throughout their marriage. Conversations with him had always been more interesting than the usual exchanges. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Bascom. It's just that I've known you as Miss Maitland has been part of my life for a long time. It will be tough to change that habit." She took a seat in a chair across from him, sitting comfortably with a smile. She noticed the look he gave the secretary, who then closed the door. "I know. It's been hard for me to move on, too. That's why I'm now calling myself Debbie Bascom. Bill and I will be divorced soon, and I need to start building my own life instead of just being known as Bill Maitland's wife. Sometimes it feels strange to call myself Bascom, but it's something I have to do." He looked at her intently, and she wondered what he thought. "I'm sorry to hear about everything, Debbie. No one truly knows what happens in someone else's marriage, but that man cared about you. He really did. Anyway, I agreed to meet you because of our past and because your message caught my interest. Can you tell me more? I'm here because I need your help, and I think you need me too." He just watched her, and after a moment, she went on. "I'm leaving my job at UNF, and I don't need to explain why. I know you know President Myers. I believe he mentioned me to you, hinting that there might be a job opportunity here in a different role than my academic one. I've spoken with him. We're quite good friends. I know about your friendship. I looked into it a lot in a short time after meeting him yesterday. I felt that his suggestion to contact you meant something. I just don't understand why he would want to help someone he seems unsure about." August steepled his fingers thoughtfully. "It's not that he doubts you, Debbie. You concern him. You remind him of things he prefers to forget. I know this because we were friends during my own tough times, and as men going through similar experiences, we've shared our thoughts. If he truly had a problem with you, he wouldn't have brought you up to me. Let's say he believes that pushing you out of the safe academic world and forcing you to find your way in the wider world is a chance for you to start fresh. Honestly, if you have a tough time, he can tell himself he gave you a shot at a new beginning and that you didn't make the most of it. Now, about why I need your help. Have you seen the news lately? No, but I've heard about it. Then you know your office is in a tricky spot right now. You go over your budget often and often need to come back for extra funds to finish your budget year. Plus, money seems to vanish and no one knows where it went. August, if those rumors were true, wouldn't someone have noticed something so clear?" He stayed quiet, and she felt the tension grow. "Debbie," he finally said, "I think you might be misunderstanding how people see things. It's not just the rumors, it's how people feel. You have to realize that reputation matters in an office. I understand. I know people have their views, but I'd like them to form opinions based on facts, not hearsay." She paused to collect her thoughts before speaking again. "What I offer is my hard work and my ideas to make our office run better. I've looked into ways to make our environment more supportive so everyone can succeed, which I think could help with the issues you mentioned." August looked at her, deep in thought. "I appreciate that, and it's good we are talking about making improvements. It will take more than just one meeting to win the support of the team." "Of course. I'm ready to put in the effort," she said with confidence. "Let's think about how we can work together," he said, sounding more positive now. "I'll give you the chance to share your ideas. Just be ready for some challenging questions." "That's fair," she smiled, feeling hopeful. "I'm excited about it." "August, if men were interested in me like the stories say, someone would have told me. No, but Debbie, let's be honest. You do catch the eye of men at those events, and there's also the issue with Doug Baker. That didn't start until my marriage ended, and to be clear, my soon-to-be ex isn't innocent in all this." Johnny August turned toward her and raised his hand to make his point. "Debbie, know this. I'm not against anyone. Men and women will connect in and out of work. I don't mind having a beautiful woman here, even if the men start vying for your attention. My worry isn't with you, it's about your soon-to-be ex. Bill? You're concerned about hiring me because of Bill? Yes. Look, I'm not scared of Bill Maitland. He's a skilled lawyer who has caused problems for many people in my office, but he is just a man. Still, he has a lot of influence. Austin Edwards lets him run a good part of the office while he runs for governor. This job isn't popular. The public defender's office doesn't get a lot of positive feelings from the public. Many clients have their problems and are often accused of things they may not have done. The state attorney has an advantage. They have more resources than we do. If someone unkind takes Bill's place, they could hurt people's reputations easily. There are many harsh prosecutors around the country. Bill Maitland has been fair, though. He's tough, but follows the rules. And you might be his weak spot. For 3 months, he's been tense at the courthouse. Anyone who makes mean jokes about relationships has faced his anger. One of his assistants almost lost his job over a comment about you. It's obvious to anyone who looks closely that he's still affected. I need to think about what happens if I hire you and you or someone here starts to feel something. If it got out that one of my assistants is involved with Bill Maitland's ex-wife, I'm worried about the fallout. I'm concerned he would take his frustration out on everyone connected to this office. Like I said, I'm not afraid of him. We could handle it in court and I would still come home after a long day. But the people we represent, they would be impacted. Our clients don't have much money. They don't have the resources that your wealthier friends do. They are much closer to struggling and can be greatly affected by an angry prosecutor. He looked into her eyes as he said, "What I'm saying, Debbie, is that if you can't keep your cool, you could hurt people whose main issue is being poor and helpless. I don't know if I can take that risk." Finally, I appreciate your honesty, Johnny. What I can say is that I need this job, and I will do everything possible to keep it safe. I promise to stay focused if your team does the same. I don't see a problem, and Bill and I will work through our issues. All I ask is for the chance to show you that I could help this office. All right, I will consider whatever you want to present. I promise to be fair in evaluating you. I would only ask one small favor. Yes. Please dress appropriately for the office. I want to keep a professional environment here. Thursday, July 21st, 2005, 3 p.m. Oh my God, Bill, Mr. Maitland, what happened? I dismissed Cheryl while 2 other secretaries and a couple of assistant SAs came out of their offices to look. With the eye patch, some bruises, and a hurt mouth, I wasn't surprised by their concern. I was coming down the stairs at my condo and missed a step, I said, trying to stay calm. Are you okay? I'm fine, Cheryl. I've already been to the hospital. I'll have to wear the patch for a week or 2, but I'll be okay. Make sure everyone hears the news so silly rumors don't spread around the office, okay? I hurried to my office as fast as I could. Rumors would still circulate, but I hoped to stop the worst of them. I closed the door and sat down, trying to focus on what I needed to do. A note on my desk said that Reverend Montgomery had called twice and was on his way. I wished I could have taken the day off, but I had to figure out what to do about Devin Thompson. As expected, my phone buzzed. Cheryl said, "Mr. Maitland, Reverend Montgomery is outside and really wants to talk to you." I rubbed my tired eye, but I couldn't avoid him any longer. A moment later, Montgomery walked into my office and sat in front of me without waiting to be invited. He was a short man with a round shape, neatly cut hair, and dressed well. He wore a chain with a large gold cross and several gold and diamond rings, showing that he took pride in his appearance. "Mr. Maitland, I'm glad we finally have this chance to talk. What happened to you? You look like you've had a tough day." "Reverend, it's good to finally talk. I'm sorry for the delays. I just had a little accident at home. Sometimes age makes people a bit clumsy." He studied me closely. "I've noticed that public servants find time for conversations that matter to them. I'm sorry if it seemed like I was unavailable. I've been extremely busy, both at work and at home." He shifted in his seat, clearly not convinced. "Not too busy to go on a trip while others managed your work." I held back my reply. I knew his influence as a community leader and organizer was strong. That was my first break in 3 years. I really needed to deal with some personal matters. I didn't mean any offense. It's just that important issues are waiting and many are stuck until you make a decision. Are you talking about Sean Smith? He fiddled with a ring on his pinky and then met my eyes. Yes, Patrolman Smith has been in a tough spot for too long. When will your office handle his case and let him move on? Are you suggesting he should be cleared of all charges? Montgomery sat up a bit straighter. Mr. Smith faced threats from 3 aggressive individuals who wanted to harm him and take back a woman he was dating. He acted to protect himself and his partner. There should be no doubt about declaring his innocence. I paused, gathering my thoughts as I understood the sensitivity of the issue. I know there were serious threats, Reverend, and they were indeed concerning. It's important to remember that the language people use doesn't always show bad intentions. Also, it seems that the 3 individuals might have been trying to talk to Mr. Smith about a personal issue, which makes things more complicated. Montgomery's voice became more intense. The police found something during their investigation. The people who approached Mr. Smith were likely armed and might have meant to cause trouble. He believed he was right to protect himself, adding that he thought the 3rd man was going to their truck to get something else. I looked at him for a moment. Interestingly, the item they were said to have taken into Mr. Smith's home was not registered. There is no evidence it belonged to the Ropers. Some even think it could have been a throwdown item, which police sometimes place at scenes to support claims of self-defense. Montgomery appeared upset. That is not true, Mr. Maitland. If what? He looked at me. Let's be honest. If he were white and 3 men of another race had gone into his home, you would have cleared him long ago. He is facing serious problems because of his skin color. I met his gaze, trying to stay calm. Let's be direct, Reverend. You're suggesting I see things through a racist lens. If the shoe fits. There's only one person in this office who fits that description, and you know who it is. If Smith were white and had harmed 3 unarmed people, your community would be outside this courthouse every day. He rubbed his chin and said, My colleagues and I expect you to do the right thing and clear Mr. Smith of any wrongdoing within a month. Otherwise, we will have to take more action. I shook my head. That's not going to happen. I'll look at the evidence and make my decision when I see fit. Not you, not the clergy, and not the community. Montgomery stood up slowly. We know about your reputation, Mr. Maitland. You are known for being tough, but you have a level of authority. You seem to believe you are above what is expected of public officials. Because I'm not a politician. Your boss is. Austin Edwards is not like other politicians. True, maybe not, but he is still a politician. Everyone knows he wants to move up in his career. Do you think he doesn't see how this could affect votes? Do you think he doesn't know the problems he'll face if he's seen unfavorably? I guess you would have to ask him. I'm not in a position to think about that right now. Montgomery reached out and I shook his hand. Please don't take my comments personally, Mr. Maitland. There's a long history, as you might know, of people having trouble in the justice system. That won't happen this time. I hope you make the right choice in this matter. I didn't say anything, just let him leave. I believed I would make the right choice, but I wasn't sure it was what he expected, and I wasn't really convinced that Austin Edwards had the strength to support me in doing what was right in this case. He had strong beliefs, but he might need even more strength if a challenge came up about this matter. Once he was gone, I leaned back and tried to think straight. I was about to officially lose my wife, even though I had already lost her in reality. I had to find a way to stop my 17-year-old from chasing a foolish crush if Baker was telling the truth. I had to figure out how to deal with a powerful drug dealer who had threatened my family. I also needed to keep my job while facing a strong political figure. Where would it all end? Mr. Maitland? I looked up into bright blue eyes, set in a heart-shaped face with flowing red hair that nearly reached her waist. She was about 5'6" and wearing a simple pastel blouse. She leaned forward a bit, and I tried hard to focus on her eyes. Sheila. Simpson, Mr. Maitland, I hope I'm not bothering you, but Mr. Hopper wanted me to drop off these papers for the Trent case. She didn't need to be here, but she stood near my desk, and my thoughts became scattered. Oh, the Trent case. My thoughts felt all mixed up suddenly. She smiled and said, I hope you don't mind, but that patch makes you look a bit like a pirate. It's very interesting. She stood up straight, slowly, with confidence. She just looked at me in a way that felt challenging. Once, a long time ago, I would have known how to respond to that kind of look. but it had been so long since any woman had looked at me like that, except for Aline. I wasn't expecting it, and it threw me off balance. "Thank you, and please thank Mr. Holder." After a moment, she nodded and walked away. I felt mixed emotions, but it could be trouble. I had never wanted to engage in those kinds of interactions at work because I was happily married, and I had seen it cause problems for others. But I wasn't happily married anymore, and a very attractive young woman who once would have never looked at me like that had just done so. 20 minutes later, feeling ready to stand up, I told Cheryl I needed to step out for a few minutes. I went downstairs to the new Starbucks that had taken over an old hot dog and coffee shop that had been there for 15 years. Debbie loved cinnamon cappuccinos, while I enjoyed a traditional cappuccino, especially with extra foam. It took a bit of time to get my drink because the cafe was busy, so I sipped the foam while I waited. Then I noticed her walking down the hall towards the clerk of the court's office. She should have been getting ready for the ship's departure in a few days, but maybe she had some free time. It was definitely her. She had heavy black hair, a familiar shape, and the way she walked was very recognizable. She wore a new outfit, a short green skirt, and a blue-green jacket with 2 buttons. I wondered why she was near the clerk's office. Had she come to see me? It seemed unlikely. Before I knew it, I was moving closer to her when someone called her name. She turned back towards me, and I stopped in my tracks, feeling a mix of gratitude and sadness. I walked to the elevator, purposely not looking at the woman who looked so much like Aline Desjardins. I knew it wasn't her. I had promised to think of her every day, and now I truly understood the meaning of that promise. Thursday, July 21st, 2005, 3:15 p.m. "Send her in, Abby." Debbie paused for a moment before stepping into the room. She had no reason to hesitate. She promised to talk to the man, and after this first meeting, she could leave feeling good inside. He stood as she entered and moved forward to greet her. "Mrs. Bascom, it's a pleasure to meet you. Was it easy for you to find my office?" "Yes, your secretary gave clear directions. I appreciate you meeting with me, even though—" Dr. Ernst Teller gave her a look that suggested he could sense her feelings. He was tall and slim, with brown hair cut in a classic style. He seemed older, but his age was hard to place. His features were sharp, and he held himself straight. While he wasn't traditionally handsome, there was something about him that drew attention. "Even though you think this might not be worth your time, and you probably won't come back." She raised an eyebrow, surprised. "You must be quite the observer at parties, Dr. Teller." He smiled warmly, which made her feel at ease. It was a kind expression, without the usual hints of tension she often felt when meeting new men. She realized that most people would want to trust this man. "Thank you, but that's just what I often hear from people who visit my office for the first time. Most people come here unsure if they really want my help." He pointed to a small gray couch behind a coffee table with an interesting black and white ink pattern that matched a big painting on the wall. "Please, have a seat." "Should I lie down?" "Only if you really want to," he replied with a smile. She sat on the couch and leaned forward. He sank into a large leather chair across from her. "What do we do now?" He shrugged. "We can talk if you want. We could just sit quietly for the next 55 minutes, but that wouldn't help either of us. Why don't you start by telling me why you're here or what Dr. Kreider thought I could help with?" After 30 minutes, he leaned back in his chair and gently puffed on a pipe, which he had asked her if it was all right to smoke. "At first glance, I agree with Dr. Kreider's thoughts. Any woman in your situation would feel similarly. Even if you think the divorce is necessary, it must be really stressful. Going through a divorce is one of the hardest things anyone can face, much like losing someone close. On top of that, you mentioned a new man in your life, only the second man you've been close to in 20 years. Your relationship with your daughter seems strained. Your son has chosen to stay with his grandparents, and there's no clear end with your husband." He breathed out a ring of fragrant smoke. "As someone once said about dancing bears, the surprise is not how poorly they dance, but that they can dance at all. It's not surprising you're feeling overwhelmed, but the surprising part is you're managing to get through life with so much happening." She looked at the ink pattern on the table. "That might be true, but if this is me functioning, I can't imagine what not functioning would feel like. I really need help. Sometimes I don't think I'll make it, and there's more." "What's on your mind?" "I've shared some about Bill, and I know you know him. People say he's a good man. Even my mother is on his side. And I know I've hurt him by asking for a divorce and starting to care for a younger man. She looked into Teller's eyes and, for the first time in a long time, felt that she could speak openly without judgment. I couldn't share this with anyone else, not even Bill. But our marriage has been struggling for a long time. He stepped back from it, not me. Maybe I expected too much. He's 41 and has never been very active. He has lived a life without much activity, and it shows. And me, I've worked hard to stay healthy. People have always said I'm attractive, and I like the attention. Sometimes I would lie in bed at night and glance over at him. He's changed, and though I know it's not fair, I felt disappointed. I enjoy flirting with men. It makes me happy to know they find me appealing. I might have pushed boundaries a bit too far at gatherings. And there were other things I did. I never fully betrayed him or had relationships with other men, but in the past few years I felt an urge to connect. I had my moments alone. She looked into Teller's eyes. I'm not as naive as some men might think just because of my looks. I see clearly that Bill didn't try hard enough, letting our relationship fade. He loved me, and deep down I was looking for connections with others. I thought about ending things many times before I finally called him at his office. And what makes me feel worse, Dr. Teller, is that I knew I was hurting him when I said I didn't love him anymore. It was true, but I didn't have to say it that way. But I did. I wanted him to feel hurt, and I can't really explain why. And Kreider picked up on it. I sensed it myself, but I didn't understand why. When I talk about him, I feel angry. I feel furious. I was the one looking for connections. I was the one who started showing interest in a young man who just wanted to be close to me. I pushed him away, so I appear to be the one at fault. Yet I have these feelings of resentment at times. I guess I'm afraid. Only someone confused would feel this way. Am I confused? Confusion can be a complicated emotion. You feel guilt for how you've treated him, but at the same time you have strong feelings of anger and resentment. The key question is, has he done anything to deserve that anger? Has he been unfaithful? Had relationships with other women? I'm not sure. I don't think so. It's hard for me to say, but I can't picture a woman being interested in him like that. Or at least not until now. It seems like he's making changes just when I've stopped loving him, as if he's doing it to hurt me. Sometimes She paused, her mind racing. You see what I mean, Doctor? Has he been unfair to you, unkind? Has he ever harmed you? She looked at him in disbelief. Bill? No, I don't think he would ever hurt me, even if he was angry. He's a competent lawyer, strong in his work, but to actually harm someone? No, that's not who he is. I think that's part of the issue. I lost some respect for him in a way. She hesitated, then continued. I couldn't believe it when he had that argument with Doug at UNF. It embarrassed me at the time. It seemed so unlike him. I remember asking myself, who is this person? Because Bill seemed different. The doctor stayed quiet, reminding her of something Bill once said about how silence can be a good part of a conversation. People often feel uncomfortable with silence. He was never unkind. He was good. Maybe too good sometimes. There were times at night when I sensed what he wanted, but I just wasn't in the right mood. Life was busy with work and the kids, and we hadn't been close in a while. But sometimes I wished he would have been more direct, that he would have taken charge. I know it's not fair to expect him to read my mind, but that's how I felt. The doctor nodded thoughtfully. It's normal, Miss Bascom. Many people have mixed feelings in relationships. It's not always simple, but it's understandable. Maybe understandable, but it's still confusing for me. There's something I've never shared with anyone before. This stays between us, right? You won't tell Bill? He gave her a comforting nod. One night I had a dream. I woke up, and Bill was next to me, and I felt really frustrated. I went to the safe where we keep a gun for safety. I took it out and just stood there looking at him. Your next appointment is here. He glanced at the clock before replying. Thank you, Abby. I'll be right there. As he got ready for the next session, he thought about Miss Bascom's situation. There were many layers to her feelings, deep emotions below the surface. The clues from her dream suggested she had unresolved issues, and he hoped to explore what had shaped her thoughts. Miss Bascom left with a mix of worry and relief. Her journey was just starting, and although she faced unknowns, There was a hint of hope in her choice to seek help. He took a moment to collect himself before greeting his next patient, reminding himself how important it is to show understanding in his work. "Cassell is here. Tell him I'll be just a minute." Knowing Bill Maitland's background and history with his wife would help in her treatment, he thought. He already sensed that there was a divide between them because of Maitland's doubts about being worthy of her. It was possible she had noticed this deep down and understood that he might not feel deserving of her. If she did, the distance between them was likely. People usually respond to you based on the expectations you set. But beyond that, there was no sign that either of them had experienced serious issues in their marriage before Maitland joined the state attorney's office. This suggested a relatively happy marriage for at least 8 years. Over the last 10 years, she had drifted away from him. She became closer to others and eventually found friendship with a younger man who was more attractive. That made sense, almost like a storybook. But where did the anger come from? If she was being honest and he only let her down, that bitterness shouldn't be there. No, something must have changed in the last 10 years, especially in the past 5. There had to be some event, something she was keeping to herself or might not even realize. He smiled. Cases like this were what he loved. Sometimes he thought he must have been a detective in another life, if that detective were real and if he believed in coming back as someone else. He called out to Abby, "Please bring in Mr. Cassell, Abby." A moment later, a tall man with slumped shoulders and thinning brown hair walked into the office. Why couldn't he stand up straight? For a second, Teller felt annoyed, but then he put on a calm face. If Martin Cassell knew how unstable he looked, his wife might not have moved on, and Teller wouldn't have been helping him for the past 3 years. "Doctor?" "Good afternoon, Martin. This will be our last session together." "What? Why, doctor? You haven't done anything wrong. It's just that I have too many patients right now, and I need to give your appointment time to a new patient." "Dr. Teller, you can't do that. How?" Teller leaned forward and raised a hand for silence, and Cassell fell quiet. "I don't want to be harsh, Martin, but there comes a time when it's necessary to take action instead of just talking. You came to me 3 years ago when you discovered that your wife was having an affair with a coworker. That affair has ended. It was 2 years ago. We've talked about the situation and its effects on your relationship with your wife. We discussed your struggle to accept her choices and your difficulties in moving forward. You've started to see that while she made decisions, you also have a part in this. Unfortunately, during your time of reflection, she began another affair, which we needed to talk about in depth. You still haven't taken steps to reconnect with your wife, even though we agreed that rebuilding that connection was important to you. There has been a lack of closeness between you for almost 3 years now, and we both know that without change, there is a risk of her wanting a divorce. I understand, but I want you to buy her some flowers roses, since I remember she likes those, and bring them along with a bottle of white wine. Try to create a nice atmosphere tonight. Be kind and attentive to her. Aim for a real connection. If she is open to it, focus on what makes her happy. Even if you don't get closer in the same way, put her comfort and joy first. If she doesn't want to be close physically, just try to be near her and show her you care. Do the same thing the next day. Instead of flowers or wine, find something she likes, like a movie or her favorite songs. Show your interest gently and politely. Join her in things she enjoys while making sure she knows you care. I want you to keep this up every day for the next 30 days, no matter what. If she doesn't respond, focus on having good conversations instead. Stay away from distractions like TV and be fully present. If she continues to ignore you, spend time on your own hobbies instead of feeling sorry for yourself. Each day, keep trying. If she asks why, be truthful. Tell her you see the struggles in your marriage and that you want to work on it. Let her know you plan to continue trying until she tells you otherwise. What if she says she wants a divorce, calmly tell her that unless she is sure about ending everything, you will keep trying to win her back this month. Stick to this plan. The outcome could lead to the end of your marriage, and you should think about the kind of relationship you've had. You've been hurting for 3 years. Your marriage should not be a place of pain. It should be where you find comfort and peace. I'm scared, doctor. If she leaves me, you will be okay, and I will help you set up another appointment. You won't be alone, Martin, but you need to take action. We can talk about your feelings and what you want from your wife and your marriage for years, but nothing will change until you do something. Do you really think this is the right thing to do? I do. And no matter what happens, I want you back in a month. Hopefully, you'll tell me that you and your wife are working on building a better relationship. I truly believe you have a chance, but you need to take the lead. After Cassell left, Teller sat back and filled his pipe again, taking in the comforting smell. Sometimes his work was quite disheartening, but what kept him hopeful was that sometimes people managed to mend their lives. He wished the same for Maitland and his wife. Thursday, July 21st, 2005, 3:30 p.m. As I entered the state attorney's office and walked to my office, Cheryl rushed in front of me. A courthouse bailiff had his hand near his side. All courthouse staff were supposed to carry standard issue items, but many of the older workers preferred their usual choices. Mr. Maitland, I'm sorry, I tried to stop him, but he was too quick. He got in before I could do anything. The bailiff, an older man I thought was named George, stepped forward and asked, "Do you want me to go in first?" I shook my head. It could be anyone. An upset parent wants a break for a child in trouble or someone looking to create a fuss. What did he look like, Cheryl? Did he tell you his name? He was a big, tall man, very well dressed and slim. He didn't seem dangerous, but there was just something strange about him. Did he give you a name? He just mentioned that Tyrone had come by to say hello. He said you would know him. At that moment, I realized who he was, even though it had been a long time. It seemed like something he would do come in and stir things up. I held out my hand to George and said, "Wait just outside the door, but don't come in unless I call for you." As I entered my office, I felt a bit nervous, but not too much. If this was the Tyrone I remembered, he'd be smart enough not to cause trouble in a prosecutor's office. That was not his way. He was standing near my desk, looking at pictures of me with well-known people. He looked over at me, his eyes widening with interest. "Maitland, it seems someone made a big impression on you. Tell me who it was, and I'll make sure they get something special, maybe a nice drink." He wore a stylish suit that looked like it was made in New York, had diamond cufflinks, and gold earrings that sparkled. I guessed his shoes were just as classy. He was slim, his shaved head shining in a way I couldn't match. He had a friendly smile and an appealing presence. I sensed that beneath his charm, he carried some heavy history. He reached into his jacket, and I felt a quick surge of tension, but he only took out a silver cigarette case. He opened it and pulled out a cigarette. With a swift motion, a monogrammed silver lighter appeared, igniting the cigarette. "There's no smoking in this building." "Oh, I didn't know that. Let me just finish this one, and I'll start following the rules." He took a puff, letting out a wisp of fragrant smoke, and smiled at me. He walked over to a chair in front of my desk and sat down smoothly. That's how I would describe Tyrone Biggs, someone from the neighborhood who made a name for himself, a person of influence in South Florida. He had a strong presence. He looked me over and said, "I saw your picture online and heard about your angel of death reputation, but I could hardly believe it. Shaving your head, changing your style. And you've always been so traditional. You must be going through one of those midlife changes people talk about, but I won't have to worry about that for a while." I sat down behind my desk, considering if I could quickly defend myself if needed. "Have you missed me that much, Tyrone? If yes, come back and give me a good reason. I could make sure you took a break for a while." His smile almost faded, showing he was feeling the weight of my words, but he quickly brushed it off. Spending time in the Florida prison system was an interesting experience once, and I appreciate it, but once was enough. I leaned forward, resting my hands on my knees. I could reach for my protection in a second, but Tyrone had a strong presence. "So, why did you come to see me? You vanish for 8 years and then appear out of nowhere. Did you miss me? Or is there something else going on?" He took another puff of his cigarette. "Nothing big, Maitland. I've been busy down south, but I wanted to visit Derek. He's in a camp near Tallahassee. He has 2 more years left, and I wanted to make sure he's okay. I have people keeping an eye on him, but I wanted to see for myself that he was doing all right. I'm glad to know he's doing well. Why not do him a favor and leave him be? He's made some mistakes, but I hear from the camp leader that he's doing pretty well. He's studying for his GED and wants to learn a skill. If he's your brother and you care about him, why not let him have a chance at a good life?" Tyrone shook his head, releasing a puff of smoke that smelled a bit like candy. He wasn't big on jewelry, but he wore a lion's head ring with rubies for eyes and a big diamond in the mouth. I could only imagine how much that cost. "Yeah, he's my brother, and I want him to spend his whole life working just to afford a small house for a family, missing out on the world like I did. I want him to reach for more than that. Until someone you trust makes a decision you didn't expect. You know that's how it goes. You might be on top for a bit, but how many people in your life ever really retire and enjoy a long life?" He looked at me and said, "Maybe, Maitland. It's a classic debate. Is it better to live intensely for a few years and then fade away, or have a long, dull life? I choose to live fully while I can, and I want that for my brother." Then he offered me a small smile. "Anyway, I just finished visiting Derek and thought I'd stop by to thank you." "Thank you?" He sat up straighter, and it felt like I was watching a snake prepare to strike. "You didn't have to give Derek such a light sentence. You didn't have to tell him to go to that low-security camp instead of Rayford. He was just a young kid. I didn't do anything for him that I wouldn't have done for any other kid in trouble. I don't like you, Maitland. You took 2 years from my life. My mother passed while I was in prison, and I couldn't go to her funeral, but most prosecutors would have used my brother against me. You didn't. You treated him as if you didn't know me at all. And you gave him a chance. I appreciate that, but you don't have to thank me, Tyrone. Just stay away from my part of the state. Whether you want it or not, I still owe you my thanks. I have some work to do down south now. It's been good, but I hope we don't cross paths again soon." He walked to the door of my office and stopped for a moment, looking back at me. "Oh, and just so you know, I still have friends around here. I heard a troubling story. They say someone in one of your special cells had a serious issue. When things like this occur behind bars, it raises doubts about the system." He left, moving past Cheryl, who rushed in saying, "Mr. Maitland, Chief Brown is on the line." Brown was the head of the jail. I answered the phone. "Maitland, everything is going wrong down here." "What happened?" "You know Devin Thompson, the one in that holding cell away from everyone? He wasn't as alone as we thought." "What do you mean?" "Lieutenant Colton checked on him at 3 p.m. and said he was just resting. When Colton came back at 3:30, the bunk was drenched in blood and Thompson was under a blanket. When they pulled the blanket off, it was shocking." I glanced toward the door, but I was sure Tyrone was gone. "Is that all?" "No, it gets worse." "Worse than that?" "They changed the situation in a very unsettling way. It was hard for the officers to see." "And no one witnessed anything?" "Colton and 2 other staff members were busy with other issues upstairs. With everything happening, the officers we had there were tied up for a while." "All right, have someone check the video recordings. His cell and the hallway were being watched, right?" There was a long pause. "We do have video, don't we?" "That's what I first thought. I went to the command center, but Riley and Kitty Wells were both out getting coffee. They said they left around 3 or shortly after, and that's the last they remember. The tapes from the cameras by Thompson's cell and the hallway are missing for the last hour." "Who went to get the coffee?" "Jimmy Miller. He's a trustee, soon to be out in 2 months. He's very nervous, claiming he didn't do anything wrong and just picked up coffee from the commissary. I've had officers checking, but no one saw anything. Honestly, nobody keeps track of who goes through there. Who thinks their coffee might be messed with in jail?" I leaned back, rubbing my chin. I couldn't feel too sad about something so serious happening, but it was clear that security had been breached, leading to a troubling incident. I had a feeling about who might be involved and why, but I didn't think I could ever prove it. "You have detectives looking into everything?" "Yes." "This information hasn't gone public yet, but what do we say if the media starts calling?" "Sheriff Knight is in charge. You do what he says, but I would keep quiet and tell everyone under you to do the same until we know how to handle this." I ended the call, and when I turned, Charlie Case was standing in the doorway. "You heard?" "Yeah," I said. "It's hard to believe anyone could do something like that. It makes you wonder who would want to harm someone and leave a message like that." He shrugged. "Devin wasn't the nicest guy I've known. I find it hard to believe he didn't make many enemies on his way up. Remember the Browns, the family of that young boy? They're not exactly peace-loving. They wanted something from him. There are other groups, too. I looked at him with curiosity. That's the odd part, Case. I can see his rivals or the Browns wanting something done, but the way it happened. Somebody really wanted him gone. No, it's more than that. It feels like a message. Someone was sending a signal to his group, but who did it and what was the message? The message was likely that anyone who threatens a prosecutor might face people who will take action themselves, instead of the law stepping in. It's a different kind of danger. That makes sense, but there are only 3 people left who know about that threat. Case's face was hard to read. We both know who is behind this. He's already on his way to South Florida. I couldn't stop him because we didn't have proof. He claimed to be visiting his brother Derek in the Panhandle, but how did he know about the threat and have the time to plan this? He's talented, but nobody is that skilled. Case shrugged again. I don't know. I glanced across my office, thinking of Tyrone and where he might be heading now. I asked, You've been away from that life for a while, but you still know people, right? Everyone knows someone, Maitland. You spent time with some of the same people who moved between here and Miami. I bet you could still call someone there if you wanted to. He looked at me, a small smile emerging. Why would I want to do that? Let's say, hypothetically, if there was an issue that couldn't be solved through the legal system, a man with connections outside of it could find a way. He looked back at me, serious now. I'm a bailiff of the court. My best friend is a judge, and he's the only reason I'm not in a worse spot right now. You don't think I would betray my beliefs to harm someone like Thompson, do you? He followed my gaze to where we both knew Anthony was headed. Even if I had warned him, do you really believe someone like Biggs would risk himself to save the family of the man who put him in jail and kept him away from his mother's funeral? No, I suppose not. It's just hard to understand. Don't stress over it, Maitland. Some things are meant to remain a mystery. I don't think we'll ever fully understand what happened to Devon. He walked away, leaving me to sit and watch as the chaos unfolded around me while the media learned of the situation. Sheriff Knight and Edwards were trying to manage things, aiming to stop any negative comparisons with local law enforcement. Soon I was caught in a non-stop series of meetings with officials from the sheriff's office, jail staff, media representatives, and internal discussions within the state attorney's office. Along the way, I discovered that the tapes from Devon's cell were not the only ones that had gone missing. As detectives worked to piece together the events, they also searched for the recording of my meeting with Devon, his attorney Smith, and Case. Those tapes had vanished too. In fact, all the recordings from that meeting room last week seemed to have disappeared. Staff responsible for monitoring pointed to the private tech firm that maintained the system. The tech firm claimed it was a mistake by courthouse personnel that likely caused the loss of those tapes. Hours passed, and I finally left another long meeting to find it was 8 p.m. I was worn out. I told the remaining people that I had met my responsibilities. Since I had been injured in an accident, just returned from a trip, and hadn't had a chance to settle in, I was going home. As I walked out of the courthouse toward my car, I remembered my earlier talks with Doug. I called Debbie, but got no answer. I tried again and drove back to my condo to call once more. In total, I called 6 times over the next 45 minutes without any reply. I unpacked my suitcase. As I put my clothes away, they felt like reminders of another time. Had it really been less than a day since I had been with Aline? How could so much happen in such a short time? How had I formed a connection with a French woman like none I had met in the past 20 years in less than a week? I had thought this little apartment felt lonely, but now it felt stifling. It and I were just passing through. There were no important memories here, only shadows of the past. I needed to get out. If I stayed here, I would remember the early days when all I could think about was Debbie and the moments we had together. I really needed to get away and forget those memories. I almost drove to the last call or O'Brien's, but something made me take a familiar route, as if the car knew where to go. I stopped a little way down the street, unable to pull into the driveway. It was dark now, around 9:30, and there were no lights in the house that had once been ours. I knew I shouldn't wait for her. I had spent the last few months trying to distance myself from her and the hurt she had caused. I had avoided talking to her because I was afraid I would either lose my temper or start crying. Could I truly hurt her? I would have said no before, but I had seen too many times how good people faltered in moments of sadness. The sad results lingered in my mind. I thought about waiting and calling her tomorrow, yet I couldn't bring myself to leave. I had called her home phone, but there was no answer. The dark house confirmed my worry that she was not home. Maybe she was with her parents. No, she would have answered her cell if that were the case. So she was out tonight. Was it for work or with a friend? Maybe Doug, if he had been honest with me. Had she really moved on? I sat in the dark as the streetlights flickered on, time passing slowly. Then I saw her Nissan coming down the street, followed by a dark blue Saturn. She pulled into the garage while the Saturn parked in the driveway. She got out of her car and closed the garage door behind her. A slender man stepped out of the Saturn and followed her to the front door. I got out of my car and walked toward the porch that had once felt like home. She turned on the hallway light, brightening both her face and the face of the man with her. They were talking and laughing. I reached the front yard and moved closer, wondering if he was trying to be close to her. Had she really moved on so fast? I walked quietly and she didn't even see me coming. You're right, Clint. I love Thai food, and thank you for keeping me out of this house. I almost hate to say goodnight. Well, don't let me interrupt your plans, Debbie. I'd just like a moment with you. She jumped and looked at me, clearly surprised. Bill? What in the world? I tripped on some stairs, got a bit hurt. The man turned quickly, giving me a careful look. He looked familiar, but I was pretty sure I had never seen him face to face before. Bill, I was just... He extended his hand, and by habit I shook it. Hi, you must be Bill Maitland. I'm Clint Abbott, a visiting professor at UNF. Nice to meet you. I hope you be careful with those stairs. They seem to have left a mark. Debbie continued to look at me in surprise. I'm sorry, Debbie. I didn't mean to interrupt your evening. Could we talk for just a moment? If you have plans later, just call me on my cell. I'll be up late. I'm leaving, Mr. Maitland. Debbie, Mrs. Maitland Bascom Band. I just had dinner and a few drinks. I need to get home since tomorrow is a work day. He turned to go and she placed her hand gently on his arm. Clint, thank you. As he walked past me, I felt a connection and said, Ride on by. He looked at me and a smile appeared on his face. Guilty. Don't tell me you read it? And saw the movie. I thought you looked familiar. Your face was on the back cover. He has a sharp mind, Clint. I should have warned you. I don't think he ever forgets anything. I couldn't help myself, even if I wish I could. It was a little mean, but it pleased me to see her look slightly upset. Well, on behalf of myself and my accountant, Mr. Maitland, thank you for your support. People like you have let me avoid hard work for the past 20 years. It was a good book. I've enjoyed most of your work. Not all? He smiled again. Authors are eager for praise. We want everyone to love everything we write. But thank you. Hearing that from you means a lot. I just gave him a knowing look. Oh, yes, I've read about the Angel of Death, actually. He paused, looking thoughtful. Actually, I had my publisher call me already. He asked if I thought about writing courtroom stories. They're quite popular now, thanks to Grisham and Scott Turow. I haven't tried that, but I did look into you after our call. You're quite an interesting person. Have you ever thought about someone writing about you non-fiction? Though fiction is more my style. How does the Angel of Death Scourge of the Underworld sound? I frowned. Like a very bad old novel. Don't lower yourself. I don't choose the titles. My first choice for Ride On By was The Gunfighter and the Lady. The publisher always comes up with something better, but it was just an idea. If you change your mind and want to talk, I'll be at UNF for a few months. I won't, but thanks anyway, my life is. There's too much going on to even consider that. Debbie looked at both of us as if we had suddenly started talking sports in front of her. Good night, Clint. Thank you for this evening. I'll see you tomorrow. He smiled at me and then at her, realizing what had taken place, and said good night to both of us before leaving. She watched Clint walk away and felt like she was back in high school, when one boyfriend would show up while she was on a date with another. It wasn't quite the same, but the feeling was similar. She felt a bit embarrassed, even though she didn't need to be. She focused on Bill's face and remembered the last time he looked so worn. Are you okay? What happened? Not important. I apologize. I wouldn't have come over if I could have reached you by phone. Oh, I forgot. I turned my phone off when I went out with Professor Abbott. Did you want to avoid being disturbed on your outing? A spark of anger bubbled up inside her, but she quickly pushed it aside. He had every right to feel this way. Clint is just a friend, Bill. He asked me to dinner and for drinks. This house feels too empty now that Kelly and BJ are gone, and... Doug, yes, I know that's why. I was going to say with you gone, but yes, Doug is gone too. You already know about that? You've only been back for a day? You're quite in the loop. That's why I wanted to speak with you. BJ called me. BJ? He was in the house when he heard what was happening between you and Doug and Kelly. I had no idea, but whatever he heard, he saw Kelly leaving your bedroom while Doug was in there. It doesn't matter what he heard. What was she doing in your bedroom with Doug? His voice raised a little. She understood his concern. It's not what you think, or not exactly. What does not exactly mean? We're talking about a teenager and an adult. You know how that sounds? She leaned against the front door. It's troubling, but not in the way you think. Nothing really happened. I'm really curious about what happened means. She sighed. I'll tell you everything, Bill. I have no reason to lie, and I know you well enough to think I wouldn't. But, can we talk inside? I don't want to discuss this out here. I don't want to go inside. Why? It's your house. Correction, it was. Just for a few minutes. He looked at her in a way that could have frightened her, but she felt bold standing her ground. Debbie, for a smart woman, you can be quite naive. You asked me to leave this house. You've spent time with another man here, and it seems like you've moved on. She battled to find the words. He was usually the one who spoke so well. Doug is gone, Bill. I can't change the past. But this has been your house for 10 years, and I was your wife for 18 years. Doug was just a chapter. This is still your house. It always will be. And I was your wife, and I still am for a few more days. No matter what happens, we were married for 18 years and together for 20 years, and we have 2 kids. You said you wanted to talk. Can't you stay in your house for a few minutes? He stepped inside and said, The kitchen. For some reason, I feel okay about the kitchen. They sat at the table just like before. He looked around as if he was seeing it all anew, and when he stopped at the counter by the refrigerator and glanced back at her, she knew what was coming. The snow globe? It got knocked off. It completely shattered. I had to get rid of it. Like a lot of things, Debbie, including me, right? She let that go. I'll explain what happened. Doug stayed over, and I had a morning meeting at UNF. I think we had lightning hit the house the night before because the alarm was off. I had to jump up and leave. I thought Debbie and BJ were spending the night at friends' houses. Then I remembered I had forgotten a folder and came back. I was at our bedroom door when I heard them. Kelly had come in and was with him. They had no clue I was outside. Doug told her to leave, and I could see he was serious. When I stepped inside, Kelly was quite open about what was happening. She paused and asked, Want something to drink? We have some of your Goldschlager. There's beer in the fridge. The kind of beer he drinks. She went quiet. How did he manage to hit the mark so well? Just beer. No thanks. Kelly was definitely into him. She has been for a while. I confronted her and she got really angry and moved out. She's staying with Mom and Dad now. I told Doug to take his things and leave. It wasn't safe for him to be around her. She's 17 and impressionable. Very attractive, right, Debbie? And so charming, right? She spoke as evenly as she could. He's appealing, Bill, especially to a 17-year-old dreaming about the future and relationships. Anyway, we were going to end it soon. I told him we needed to break up. So you say? She almost stood up, feeling anger bubble inside her. That's enough. I'm trying to be honest, and you keep criticizing me. I never went that far with him. Sure, I flirted, but I was going to end things the right way before thinking of someone else, until you made everything messy. He looked like he would stand up, but remained seated. It was never serious, Bill. I didn't fall in love with him. I just stopped loving you. He was there to fill a gap, but if I hadn't met him, I would have asked you for a divorce. He's young, and I knew he wouldn't be reliable. He's charming. So, yes, I ended it with him. If you don't believe me, talk to him and ask him anything. I've already spoken with him. There was something in his voice that made her realize. You must have upset him. I hope he didn't cause you any trouble. She saw him smile, noticing it was the first time in months. He was upset, but Let's just say he won't be as charming as before. But you really have no respect for me, do you? She looked at him again. He wore his usual clothes, but he looked different, stronger. She couldn't believe she was asking, but the words slipped out. You didn't hurt him too badly? His smile vanished. You still care about him, don't you? Are you really done with him? I just don't want you to face problems that could ruin everything you've built. And I don't care for him, but he's okay. We had a talk, and he has some bumps, but he will be fine. He's leaving town, though. She stared at him, confused. What had happened? I wasn't part of this. Apparently, he got a job offer in Chicago, but he said he was staying for you. He thought he meant more to you than just a brief moment. I don't know about you, but I am going to have a drink. She opened the fridge, grabbed a beer, and took a sip. He took things more seriously than I thought. He's just young. Bill, emotionally, he doesn't seem much more grown-up than anyone else, just a big kid. You move pretty fast, Debbie. You pushed me away, brought him in, pushed him away again, and now you've found someone else. I have to give you credit for choosing better this time. That guy seems good, a nice writer, and with him you won't have to worry as much. In frustration, she put the beer down hard on the table. I never looked down on you. That was all in your head. He didn't respond, just looked around the kitchen as if seeing it for the first time. It doesn't matter, Debbie. In a month, it'll all be different. Thanks for telling me what happened with Doug and Kelly. It matches what he said, and I believe you because nothing you or he said contradicts what BJ saw. He stood up. Goodbye, Debbie. I'll let myself out. She got up and nearly reached out to him, but stopped as he moved away. Bill, thank you. Thank you for talking to me. It's been hard not being able to talk to you. Even if this was just about Kelly, I'm glad you finally wanted to communicate. He turned around when she said, One favor, Bill. Please call Mom and Dad and talk to Kelly. She won't talk to me. I get why. But you're her father. Please try to help her understand about Doug. I'll call and stop by now. Goodbye. I sat in my car in the dark for 10 minutes after leaving Debbie's place. No matter what she said, it didn't feel like my home anymore. As long as I stayed away from her, I could remember the house and our life as it was. But now I had been inside, and unsettling thoughts filled my mind. I knew talking to her might have been a mistake. In some ways, I felt better, but I also felt uneasy. It was a tough situation. She was difficult to be around. Maybe one day I could look at her without wanting to reach out, without being overwhelmed by memories. But it wasn't today. I drove to the Bascom's house. I called ahead and talked to Kathy. I asked if Kelly was there, and after she confirmed, I told her I was on my way to see her. It was 11:15 p.m. when I arrived. Roy answered the door. She's in her bedroom, Bill. This wasn't the first time we had spoken since everything changed, but our talks had only been quick chats when I picked up the kids. He stopped me as I walked by and placed his hand on my shoulder. I wanted to say I'm sorry for what I said when this all started. I never thought she would throw everything away for a short fling. That's not the daughter I raised. I know Kathy has talked to you. This situation will pass and she will come back. When she does, just remember she was a good wife for many years. That's all. I stood there for a moment, unsure of what to say back. I then walked to what had once been Debbie's younger sister Clarice's room. Now Kathy and Roy used it as a guest bedroom. I knocked on the door, and after a moment I pushed it open and stepped inside. Kelly was sitting cross-legged on Clarice's old bed, wearing headphones and working on a laptop. She wore a light blue pajama set. I didn't have to look hard to see that Doug was right. She was a lovely young woman. Except for her hair color, she could have been the same person I first saw on the University of Florida campus 20 years ago. I assume your soon-to-be ex-wife told you a bunch of lies about what happened? No, she told me the truth. She told me the same story Doug told me this morning. She looked up at me, and the angry response she seemed ready to give faded as she looked at my face. God, Dad, what happened to you? Oh no, you didn't go after Doug, did you? It wasn't his fault. She took off her headphones and placed the laptop on the bed. You didn't have him arrested, did you? I shook my head and sat down next to her on the bed. No, Doug and I just had a small fight. He gave me a few hits and I gave some back, but he's going to be fine. Dad, you hurt Doug? I shook my head, observing her expression. Why does everyone find that so hard to believe? Yes, I hurt him, but nothing serious. And I didn't have him arrested, even though I could have. We didn't do anything. Kelly, in the eyes of the law, a relationship with a 17-year-old can lead to serious trouble for him. You've grown up with a prosecutor, and you know that. Your mother coming back was the best thing for Doug. If he had crossed that line with you, I'd be taking action without hesitation. Dad, but Do not tell me you care about him, Kelly. You're 17 and have school and college ahead of you. You're not going to get involved with a much older man who was with your mother. She looked at me, clearly confused. You're just upset about Mom. But he didn't go after her. She went after him. She's been with other guys for years. I care about him, and I can tell he cares about me, too. He hasn't said it out loud, but I can see it in the way he looks at me. I took a deep breath. I don't trust him, especially because of his past with your mother. That's not the only reason you shouldn't start anything with him. He's had a lot of relationships, and you don't want to be part of that. He was involved with your mother while we were still together. Why would he treat you differently? He wouldn't hurt me. I'll make sure he's happy. One person can't make him happy, dear. It doesn't work that way with men like Doug. And you think he cares for you just because of the way he looks at you. You're not a little girl anymore, Kelly. He's looking at you like a man looks at a pretty woman, and that's who you are now. When a man looks at you like that, it doesn't always mean he loves you. She turned away from me. It doesn't matter what you think. We'll be together. You can't stop us. I'll be 18 soon, and then you and Mom can't do anything. I didn't mention that Doug would be far away soon, and if he was smart, he would stay away from her until then. After that, I had connections everywhere, and Doug would be watched. She turned back to me, and she looked so much like her mother that it hurt. Besides, it's too late to worry about my reputation, Dad. Doug wouldn't be the first. I know. No, I've had 2 boyfriends since then. I stopped seeing Jamie and started dating Charles, but Jamie moved back here 3 months ago. We've hung out a bit. She seemed to want me to be shocked. I know this might surprise you, Kelly, but I understand that once people start dating, it can happen again. I didn't know about your boyfriends, but I can't say I'm shocked. I realize I can't keep you locked up or make your choices for you. If you want to see someone, you will. She looked very surprised. I didn't expect you to. Treat you like an adult? It's a tough change, Kelly, because you'll always be my little girl, no matter your age. You'll understand this more when you have kids. You guide them while they're young, but eventually they grow up, and I can't keep treating you like a child. I reached out and gently took her hand. I won't tell you not to date because I know I can't stop that. And I don't expect you to agree with my views since I've had my own struggles. But I want you to remember one important thing and keep it close to your heart for the rest of your life. I gently touched the side of her face. Beneath her grown-up looks, I could still see the little girl I had known so long ago. I love you, Kelly. You are my daughter, and you always will be. I know I haven't said it enough, but I love you and your brother more than anything. You both mean the world to me. No one else except your mother and maybe your brother will ever love you exactly like this. If you're lucky, you'll find someone who loves you in a different way, someone who sees more than just your looks. That's what every parent wishes for their child. I want someone to love you as much as I do. I want someone to care for you as deeply as I cared for your mother. I want someone who would do anything for you, just like I would have for your mother. That part of my life is behind me now, but we had something special, and I wish the same for you. I gave her a soft kiss on the forehead and stepped outside. Kathy might have said something, but I waved her away. My tears blurred my vision, but that was all right. I had said what I needed to say. Now it was up to Kelly. She could choose her own path, and I hoped she would be wiser than her mother was at her age. I stopped at a late-night coffee shop for a cup of strong American coffee that was the best I could find in the River City. It was 12:30 a.m. when I finally laid down in bed and turned on the news. As expected, the big story was about the dramatic event at the Jacksonville jail. Many details were kept quiet, but enough was shared that it would be all over the news the next day. I adjusted my pillow, relaxed, and took a sip of coffee with some pain medicine. My left eye was hurting again. I hadn't rested as much as I should have. The news played in the background as I thought about the long day I had just lived through. It truly felt like the longest day of my life. It all began with me in bed with Aline, having to end a relationship I didn't want to finish. Within just 17 hours, I learned my son had told me that my 17-year-old daughter was involved with my wife's boyfriend. There had been a serious threat to my family. I faced tough challenges with a personal issue, and I spoke to my daughter as an adult for the first time. I had packed a week's worth of experiences into less than a day. No wonder I felt so tired. I was about to turn off the TV and go to bed when a familiar face appeared on the screen. I rewound the clip and turned up the sound. Official sources in Rwanda have confirmed that Father Egan Dunleavy, a special representative from the Vatican, has died in a crash near Kigali International Airport, Rwanda's main airport. Reports say that Dunleavy and 4 others were on a small jet that flew directly from Paris to Kigali. It was part of a private mission to help ease worries about conflict between Hutus and Tutsis. Unverified reports claim the plane was brought down by 1 or 2 missiles, possibly American-made Stingers taken or sold to rebel groups in Rwanda. They showed Dunleavy's smiling face on the screen, a photo taken after he won the Nobel Prize for his work in Rwanda. Vatican sources have shared the sadness of the Pope and other church leaders over the loss of a man who saved many lives throughout his career. A man in Vatican colors, likely a lower-level official, appeared on the screen. "The world has lost a good man," the spokesman said. "Father Dunleavy was a special person who gave so much for others. He lived a selfless life, and his reward awaits him in heaven." "They must have been very worried about you, Father," I said to the image on the screen again. "They took you down before you even landed. That's a strange kind of respect." I wondered if he had realized he was in danger. And if he did, I thought about whether he had captured one last image of Brianne O'Collins and his son. "I hope you see her again, Father," I said, thinking of the lovely Irish woman he had cared for deeply. Then, remembering the last promise I made to him, I leaned forward. Even though I had forgotten the words from my childhood prayers, I managed to say, "I am truly sorry for my mistakes. I confess all my wrongs, and I ask you in Jesus' name to guide Father Egan Dunleavy home." If tomorrow never comes, Friday, July 22nd, 2005, 9 a.m. My name is Bill Maitland. I hold a significant position in the state attorney's office in Jacksonville. I'm about to be divorced from the most beautiful woman I've ever known, who has lost her love for me. I am also a father to a son and daughter whom I have overlooked for too long while focusing on other people's problems. Last night I discovered that while I was busy with work, my daughter had grown from a little girl into a young woman who had feelings for the man who came between my wife and me. To be honest, I had introduced her to him, but that didn't make having him in my life easier. I was determined not to let him affect my daughter in a negative way, so I had a tough talk with him yesterday. We both hurt each other, so I didn't feel bad about standing firm. I could call him a coward for winning my wife, but I realized long ago that being rude doesn't mean you're weak. He certainly tried to take control during our conversation. We both made it through, and he was leaving town with my soon-to-be ex-wife, so maybe I could say I was the winner. Still, he had complicated my marriage and made me see my daughter in a new light. It was better to accept that my little girl was growing up rather than pretend she was still innocent. It hurt to think about it, but I wanted to remember her as a child, not as someone facing adult challenges. I didn't have much say in that. On a day full of surprises, I received the shocking news that morning about Father Egan Dunleavy, who had bravely tried to save lives during the Hutu-Tutsi conflict in Rwanda in the 1990s. Sadly, he lost his life during a mission back to Rwanda. I had met him while on a cruise, and I learned that he was not just a good priest, but also a truly good person. Knowing that someone so admirable faced struggles made me feel a bit more at ease with my own issues. He helped me think about my life in a different way during our time together, and even after he passed, he inspired me to find ways to make up for my past mistakes. After I got to my office at the state attorney's office that morning, I closed the door behind me and told my secretary Cheryl I needed some quiet time. I called my mother, and after a few rings, she picked up. "Hello? Hi, Mom. Bill, is everything okay?" I couldn't help but smile. She always knew how to get right to it. "Why does something have to be wrong for me to call?" "Because you hardly call your poor mother. Charles tells me you're busy and going through a lot, but if I didn't see your name in the paper, I wouldn't know you were still alive." "Mom, I know I haven't called much, but she wasn't going to let me get away with that. I bet the president is busy too, but I hear he makes time to call his mother. What could I say to that? You're right, Mom. I'm sorry. I'll try to call more often. It's not an excuse, but with everything happening with Debbie and the trials, I've barely had a moment to breathe. At least you're almost out of that situation. I am counting the days. I know, Mom, I know. I feel the same way. You might say that, but I know you well. You still care for her, but that will change. You need to move on and meet new people. You are a successful man, and you will have no trouble finding someone who is even better. You sound just like a mother. I realized I said that out loud instead of just thinking it. I know I think like a mother, but I see what's happening. That woman has affected you for 20 years. You don't see how good you are, and how others would see you if you could move on. That will change when you're free again. Mom, I know you don't like her, but she is still my children's mother. Please be careful what you say around BJ, okay? By the way, is he in? I've held back many times around BJ and Kelly. I'm not sure how she turned out so well with that influence, but I'll be careful around him. He just woke up and is having breakfast with Charles. Do you want to talk to him? Yes, please. There was a brief pause, then BJ came on the line. Dad, I talked with Doug. I don't think he was lying in the end. I also spoke to your mother and Kelly. I understand what happened. I'm glad you were there and called me, but I don't think anything major happened. Luckily, your mother arrived just in time. Doug is leaving town, going far away. I don't think we will have to worry about him much longer. He was quiet for a moment, and I realized why. Doug must have been a charming guy, and I could tell BJ felt torn between being impressed and knowing the truth. Anyway, BJ, that wasn't really the reason for my call, although I appreciate your call. The real reason I called is... I paused, trying to find the right way to talk to BJ. I just wanted to say that I love you. Dad. I haven't said it often because it felt too emotional for a teenager. But you are my son, and I love you, even if I might have been a bit difficult when it came to your friends. There was a long pause, then he asked, Is everything okay, Dad? Everything is fine, BJ. It's just that you go through life thinking you have all the time to share your feelings, and I hope you know. But nobody lives forever, BJ. We never know when we might run out of time. These were almost the last words my father spoke to me, and I still remember them. I'm glad he said them when he could. Dad, what's wrong? Nothing, BJ. Nothing is wrong. It's just that I won't be here forever. There will be a day when I'm gone. I want you to remember these words on that day, and I want you to know how much I love you. You're my son, and I'm proud of you. You and your sister are the best things that have ever happened in my life. Dad, have you talked to Mom? No, it's nothing. It's silly. I just felt like saying that. I'm not going to get emotional with you again. Just remember that, okay? Now say goodbye to your grandparents. I'm at the office working. I'll talk to you later, okay? Okay? I ended the call. I called Cheryl and told her I had to step out for a moment. For this errand, it was easier to call a cab than to take the Escalade. I found out that the best church for what I needed was Immaculate Conception Catholic Church of Jacksonville at the corner of Ocean and Duval Streets. It was an old church, close to our office and the courthouse. I walked inside. It was early and the only person there was a woman cleaning. I asked her where I could find a priest, but before I finished, a short man with a bald head and casual clothes approached me. Can I help you? It's early for visitors. I noticed a row of candles burning by one door. I'd like to have 2 candles set up to burn continuously in memory of some friends. They're called votive candles. There's no charge, but we do accept donations. Continuous burning? That's a long time. I smiled at him. Only until I'm gone, Father. After that, they're on their own. About the donation, how about $100? I'll send a check for 1,000 this week. Will that keep them burning for a while? Yes, I think so. They must have been good friends. One of them was, but both were good people. I don't want them to be forgotten. What were their names? Let me write them down, and we'll set up the candles with nameplates. Father Egan Dunleavy and Brianna Collins. He stopped writing and looked up at me. You were a friend of... An acquaintance of Father Dunleavy, but I considered him a friend. There's no charge. I handed him the $100 and said, "Then use it for those in need." As I returned to my office and prepared for difficult conversations, I felt a bit better knowing that a small light was burning somewhere to honor the good still left in the world. Friday, July 22nd, 2005, 10:30 a.m. When I got back to my office, I found a message from the big man. I walked up to his office. Myra was at her desk, busy with someone. She glanced up at me and nodded for me to go in. She looked at my bruised face for a moment before going back to her work. "Bill, are you still sticking to that story about falling down the stairs?" "It's the truth. People get hurt every day in accidents. It was just my bad luck." "You know, you're not the best at telling stories. I thought I had it figured out. A good attorney has to be good at persuasion. It's part of the job." He frowned and said, "Yes, but you can't pull that with me. I haven't seen any police reports, so I don't think the stairs will be under review." "I called you in here to talk about the Sean Smith case. Knight contacts me almost every day because his union is pushing him to address Smith's situation. That reverend keeps insisting I ask you to speed up Smith's clearance so he can get back to patrol instead of staying stuck at a desk. I'm still gathering evidence, but this isn't the only case I'm working on. I'm also preparing for the case involving the elderly woman, and I want to make sure justice is done. Plus, we have the case against William Sutton, who hurt his pregnant ex-wife. I'm determined to make sure he faces the right consequences." "I know you have other cases, Bill. There are always other cases. Also, there might be another serious matter coming up. I hope it resolves itself, but we might get the Mendoza case, the one about the sad events with those prosecutors in Texas. Honestly, many other offices don't want to take it on. The group connected to Mendoza has caused a lot of tension, and they want to pass this to anyone willing to help. The thing is, there are always new problems to deal with. But I can't keep having the sheriff and his team, along with many in the community, upset with me because things are taking too long. There's enough unknown in this situation, and Smith is a good officer. Could you please think about giving him a chance? There's a lot of uncertainty, and that's why we have a grand jury. Why not let them handle it? Bill, I can manage some officers being upset with me, even though it's tough. I can handle community complaints too, though that can cause issues later. But I can't have both groups unhappy with me at the same time. If we take this to the grand jury, it will seem like we're targeting the officer, and that will only lead to more frustration. Okay, I'll try to make a decision quickly. Please let Knight and the Reverend know that I won't delay this longer than I have to. I promise I'll do something to sort it out. Friday, July 22nd, 2005 noon. There was a quick knock at her front door. She had taken a break from working on the presentation for Johnny August to have a protein shake and thought she should visit the gym in a bit to clear her mind. She wasn't expecting anyone. Kelly wouldn't be back this soon. When she opened the door, her eyes widened. "Oh my gosh, you look like you've been through a lot." "Pretty much," Doug said. His nose was wrapped in bandages and both eyes were bruised. His right hand was in a plaster cast. "The other guy caught me off guard. That's the only reason he's still here." "Hit hard?" "That's a phrase the older guys at the gym I trained at used." "He surprised me and almost knocked me out with one punch. He was cheating, and it really hurt my nose. I even hurt my hand trying to push him away. But I did manage to hit him back a few times. I'm sorry about that. Bill came by last night. I didn't know BJ was here, and he called Bill just as he got off the ship. Bill thought you were..." "I know what he thought, and I have to tell you a secret. He wasn't just upset with me because of Kelly. He still feels strongly about our past." "I understand. But can you blame him? Honestly? Anyway, he said you're leaving town?" "Yeah, I gave my notice a couple of days ago. They weren't happy about it, but they're not too upset to see me go. I got a job offer from a friend at Roosevelt University in Chicago. I'll work in the Commerce and Enterprise section." The person who was teaching that subject passed away 2 weeks ago. They need someone new right away. The university might try to hold me to my contract, but Myers agreed to let me leave. He was fair about it. They've got temporary teachers finishing my classes. She looked at him and felt sad. He had been charming, and deep down, she knew what she had done was wrong. She might regret it later, but he had been captivating. "Doug, I'm sorry Bill confronted you like that. I'm just glad he didn't make things worse. I'm relieved there will be so much distance between you and Kelly." He stepped closer and placed his hands on her shoulders. Are you really glad I'm going to be 1,000 miles away, Debbie? At last, she answered, yes. We have no future. I valued our time together, but I need it to end. You need to start a new life for yourself. He gently pushed her back inside and shut the door. He could have pushed her down, but she didn't know how she would react. I told you before, Deb, you're making a mistake. I know you still care about him inside. I couldn't ignore that. But he will never take you back. Maybe if you catch him at the right moment someday, he might think about it. But taking you back as his wife, that won't happen. I know you keep saying that, Doug. Maybe it makes you feel better to think I didn't choose you because I still care about Bill. But that's not true. Even if Kelly weren't in the picture, I would still have ended it. We get along well, very well, but a marriage, a life together, is more than just attraction. Why do you think I stayed with Bill for so long? It wasn't just that. He moved closer, and for a moment she tried to forget their problems and think of the good times they had shared. It's not too late, Debbie. I'm leaving for Chicago later today, but I could help you find a place there. I have friends who can assist you. Kelly won't be a problem. She is staying with her grandparents. I found this out when she called me and wanted to meet. She can stay there while she finishes school. Maybe she will even go to school here. By the time she comes back to you, this phase might have passed. She'll likely find someone her own age. And BJ. He could stay with your parents or Bill's parents, or he could come with us. Chicago is a great city. It's a nice place for kids to grow up. I don't think he dislikes me. He's upset now, but kids learn to adapt to blended families. I will do everything I can to make it work with him. She opened her eyes wide and stepped back. Why, Doug? We had a good connection and enjoyed our time together. But you've never been the type to settle down with just one person. Even with what's happened, you'll still catch the eye of others. I'm nearly 40, and I'm not getting any younger. I can't trust you to stay true, and even if you did, why should you? I know we have fun together, but there's a whole world out there. Why would you want to settle down? Maybe I'm starting to grow up a bit. I never wanted things to go this way. I just wanted to be close to you. But something has changed. I know this might sound silly, but I want what you had with Bill. I want you by my side, sharing everyday moments, watching movies and enjoying simple times together. I'm almost 30 and I wouldn't mind. Having a family. I never thought I would want that, but having a child doesn't sound so bad right now. My child. She tried not to cry and held back her tears, but her eyes got a little misty. No, I believe you might actually mean that, but it doesn't change anything. You need someone your own age, Doug. If you're looking for something serious, guys often start searching for someone they can build a life with, not someone with a history. So no? So no. He stepped back from her. Okay. I had to try. I won't call or bother you again. If you change your mind, you know where to find me. But... He leaned in and gave a brief, warm gesture. Don't wait too long, Deb. Maybe you're right. Maybe I was just starting to realize things and didn't see it. But I'll be looking for someone special. I'm not giving up on companionship, but I want more. If I find that special someone, I won't let them go. So if you change your mind, don't wait too long. I won't. Change my mind. He walked to the door and looked back at her. I honestly feel sorry for you, Debbie. You turned down one guy who cared for you because he was older, and you turned down another who cares for you because he was younger. You'll never be alone because you're too beautiful, but you may never find anything like what you have let go. And then, I know I said this before, but it's true. I wish I had met you first. Then he left, closing the front door softly behind him. She went back into the living room, sat down on the couch, and looked at the pictures of Bill and the kids hanging on the walls. When the images blurred, she realized she was crying. She didn't really know what she was crying about. Friday, July 22nd, 2005, 3 p.m. I leaned back in my chair and looked over the paperwork that Detective Heather McDonald had brought to me. She was smiling brightly. It was such a long shot, Mr. Maitland. I wouldn't have tried this if you hadn't encouraged us and talked Sheriff Knight into letting me work on it. How did you even suspect something like this? Just a feeling. For her age, Judy Johansson always seemed like someone who lived fully. I found it hard to believe she would spend her life taking care of a sick, wealthy man without wanting some companionship for herself. Nowadays, many people meet online. It was just a matter of sending out the right message. She probably needed someone nearby in Orlando if she wanted to see them often. But it was more of an idea. You're the one who spent so much time on this case. Does Knight know how much of your own time you put into this? She blushed. She was a 53-year-old former vice officer and detective with a focus on delicate cases involving minors. She looked youthful, which was perfect for the plan I wanted to carry out. With her light blonde hair and self-assured attitude, she drew in attention. If she wasn't a clear example of an experienced professional, she was certainly impressive for her age. No, and I really didn't want him to know, especially if this didn't work out. He would understandably be upset to find out I was focusing so much on a personal project for someone else, even you. Well, it worked out, and you'll get the credit and the spotlight. I'll make sure you receive official recognition. She actually blushed again, which made her even more charming. I tried to keep my thoughts in check, but her confidence was captivating. Still, Mr. Maitland, we can prove they were having an affair, but that doesn't directly show she meant to harm her husband. Many people find themselves in tough spots. She paused for a moment, looking thoughtful. Don't worry, Heather. I value your honesty. Affairs can happen without any serious problems. But the real challenge will be finding evidence that shows her motive and her involvement. If we can't prove it clearly, we need to make a case strong enough to persuade the jury to decide against her. She looked at me with curiosity, then stood up, her presence strong. Mr. Maitland, I want to say this kindly. I hope you never get upset with me. I wouldn't want to face your strong feelings. Just make sure no one gets hurt, and we'll do just fine. She was about to leave, but stopped. When will your divorce be complete? September 19th. Why do you ask? I just think it's been nice working with you. After the trial, I'll go back to my usual work, and we probably won't see each other again. It's strange because someone like you might not notice someone like me. I paused for a moment, a bit surprised. She laughed softly. Calm down. I didn't mean anything more than professional respect, just making a comment. I'm not offended, Heather, just flattered and a little surprised. This is new for me. You mean having an older woman show interest in you? No, I mean having any woman suggest she's interested in me. That's because you're the kind of guy who never seemed to notice any woman. Now we expect you to notice. Have you ever thought of me that way? Not until today, honestly. But you did think of me today. Do you think you might find older women attractive? I think my jaw dropped. You know. Of course, I know what that feels like. It's nice to realize I can still get the attention of younger men at my age. Am I interesting to you? I opened my mouth and then closed it, finally saying, You already know how I feel, Heather. But right now I'm still married, and you're a police officer working on a sensitive case with me. Thinking that way will only make things complicated. Can we just set this aside for now? Sure. Call me whenever you want to talk. About anything, okay? Okay. As she stepped outside, Cheryl called me. Debbie is here, Mr. Maitland. Do you want to see her? Do I really have to answer that? Just ask her what she needs. I could hear her through the phone. I want to know why he's making our son upset. What? Tell Cheryl to let me in, Bill, before I create a scene out here. A moment later, she was in my office. What's this about scaring BJ? She leaned on the desk towards me. Why did you tell him you loved him like that? What? I told him I loved him. He's my son. And how many times have you told him that in the last few years? And talked about not knowing when you might die and wanting him to remember you? He called me almost in tears. You might get a call from your mother if she hears about this. He thinks you are really unwell or might do something serious. He said he would come back to talk to you if I thought it would help. Is something wrong? I might not be your top concern right now, but I'm still your wife. If something troubling is happening, I want to know so I can figure out how to deal with it. Oh no, I need to call him again. It's nothing serious, Debbie, at least not what you think. I'm not sick. I'm not doing anything extreme. Then why? Okay. When I was on the cruise called Bon Chance, I met a man. He was a priest named Dunleavy. He was just one of those people you really connect with. He tried to help me with some personal issues. I learned a little about his life. He had loved a girl before he became a priest, and she had passed away. He still kept her photo with him. Then, he sadly passed away yesterday. Dunleavy? The priest who made news? The one involved in the events in Rwanda? Yes, that's him. I said goodbye to him when I left the ship yesterday morning. The last thing he said was that he was going to Rwanda to help with the ongoing issues there. Then, out of nowhere, his plane was lost. That's unfortunate, but why? Because he didn't expect to lose his life that night. Just like I don't plan on leaving anytime soon. But it's like that Garth Brooks song, If Tomorrow Never Comes. You never know if you will be here by nightfall. I talked to Kelly last night, and she knows how I feel about her. Now BJ does too. And how do you feel about me? Friday, August 19th, 11 a.m. All rise. Debbie stood with Joyce Linder at her table. Across from them, Bill and Lou Walters stood as Judge Catherine Holden entered the courtroom. She was a tall woman in her 50s. Not traditionally beautiful, but she had a certain grace and confidence. Debbie thought she would be a good example of aging gracefully. Mr. Maitland, Mrs. Maitland, it's unfortunate to see you both here. I had hoped you two could figure this out. Debbie had met the judge and her longtime partner, Judge Herman Herring, at various social events over the years. She liked them both. The rumors she had heard said that Herring was a firm Catholic and married to another devout Catholic who wouldn't give him a divorce. He couldn't remarry, so he and Holden could never be together legally, but they seemed to genuinely care for each other. Bill simply shook his head. After a moment, Debbie did too. I understand from your lawyers that neither of you is interested in counseling. Both shook their heads. And Miss Linder, I'm told your client has willingly chosen to give up any claim to support or maintenance after nearly 20 years of marriage. Her husband earns significantly more than her. Lou smoothly added, but Mr. Maitland has agreed to provide generous support for both children, which will continue for 4 more years. He will keep insurance for them and help with their school costs. Maitland has chosen not to seek support, believing it is best for both of them. Although Mr. Maitland earns more, Mrs. Maitland will have a good income in her new job with the Public Defender's Office. And the people in the Twin Towers chose to jump, Joyce Linder said quietly, sounding bitter. Debbie noticed that Joyce had lost some weight, and her face showed new wrinkles. Lou had warned Debbie that many women were not happy after spending time with his partner Norm, but like others, she had needed to find out for herself. Holden looked at both lawyers, then turned his attention to Debbie. Is this your decision, Mrs. Maitland? She hesitated but held Bill's gaze. Despite how hard it was, she would manage. He could have made things worse for her. Yes, Your Honor. This is entirely my choice. I don't need or want Bill's support. I can take care of myself. Holden looked at the papers before him and then at Bill. I've known you and your wife since I began my work here, Mr. Maitland. Regardless of how I feel about divorce, I am sorry it has come to this. So am I, Your Honor. But sometimes it is best for both of us to move on. Life continues. Your divorce is granted. She turned to her bailiff and said, please bring in the next case. Bill left the courtroom first without looking back while Lou remained to speak with Joyce. Debbie walked up to Bill. He had lost weight, and even in casual clothes, he looked better than before. He moved with more energy than she remembered. After 20 years, you just walk away without saying anything? He turned to her, and she noticed his eyes glistening. What should I say, Debbie? It was good while it lasted, but it just didn't work? Thank you for the memories. Thank you for moving on. What do you want from me? You could say you're sorry. Sorry? You are incredible. I know I made mistakes, but do you really think you have no part in this? No, I accept my part. I was foolish enough to think that being a good husband and loving my wife while working hard for our family would ensure loyalty. I was wrong. So, if I had been content with what you provided, that should have been enough for me? Don't go down that road, Debbie. He bit his lip. I don't want to argue, Debbie. I spent months trying to stay away from you because deep down, I knew this would hurt me, and you would make me believe it was my fault. Maybe I wasn't the husband you needed, but I loved you from the start. I still care about you, and I believe you know that deep down. You loved me so much that you spent every moment away from me and the kids? That's how you showed your great love? You let yourself go to a point where I could hardly stand being near you? Before we parted, you started taking care of yourself and looking better. I know that Edwards is interested in you. Are you already involved with her? I've heard about Jessica. What about that cruise? Did you meet anyone special there? Sometimes it seems Clarice was right about you. You stopped caring about how you looked for me because you were getting everything at work. Is she right? Before she could respond, he was on her, pushing her back until she hit the door leading into Holden's courtroom. He held her arms above her head. He moved so quickly that she couldn't resist. When she tried to push back, he held her firmly. You're talking about your Aunt Clarice? You think I didn't know all the things she said about me? What good would arguing do? You were so caught up in her stories that you didn't see they came from her own life? You judge me based on his actions? How could you have so little faith in me? I risked everything for you, and you listened to her instead of talking to me. Then Lou stepped in, pulling him away, and she realized she had bumped her head against the door and felt a pain in her lip. Linder touched her shoulder and said, "Are you okay? This isn't right." Glaring at Bill, who Lou was holding back, she said, "How arrogant can you be? Mr. Maitland, you may think you have control here, but you don't have the right to push your wife like that, especially in front of everyone." Lou almost shoved Bill aside when he stepped between them. "Let's keep calm, Joyce. Nothing serious happened here. Bill and Debbie were arguing and he just pushed her away. That's not harmful." "Of course it is. If there had been a bailiff or police officer here, I would call them right now." Two attorneys and their clients had stopped in the hallway, staring at the scene. Lou moved closer to Debbie, ignoring Joyce, and said, "He wasn't hurting you, was he? Think carefully about your answer. If you say the wrong thing, Bill could lose his job, and other things could happen. Things you wouldn't want to see. Think before you speak." She wanted him to face the consequences, but how had it all gotten so out of hand? She had been upset with him for not caring, but she hadn't expected this reaction. This was the anger Dr. Teller had been trying to help her understand. However, she considered what Lou had implied. A moment of clarity brought her back to reality. She still couldn't risk having the emails leaked. She had just left a stable job at UNF to start a new, uncertain position. She couldn't risk causing problems for Bill's job. She still had 2 children and wanted them both to go to college. "I'm fine," she told Joyce, who was looking at her with concern. "I slipped and Bill tried to catch me but couldn't stop me from hitting my head on the door. That's what happened when I bit my lip. Oh, for goodness sakes. I don't know why you're putting up with this, but I can't let him treat you badly." Lou stepped in again. "There are no other witnesses but you and me, and I'll say you misunderstood. All you'll do is cause trouble, and with my word against yours, nothing will come of it. Also, your client doesn't want you to take action. How will you explain moving forward, Joyce? Don't let your feelings about this situation change how you see all men. I told you to be careful." "This isn't about Norm. How can you be his partner and friend?" "Because he isn't seeking anything wrong, and neither am I. I know what he is, but you chose to be involved. Let it go, Joyce, please. It's my fault. Bill wanted to walk away. I went after him and he didn't hurt me. Please don't do anything." She looked at Debbie for a moment, then at Lou, and finally at Bill. "I'm leaving, Debbie. I'll send you the paperwork. And Maitland, you need to look into taking an anger management class before you find yourself in a situation that your friends can't fix." After she left, Lou put a hand on Bill's shoulder. "Let's get out of here before she changes her mind. And please, stay away from Debbie for a while, at least until you both calm down." Debbie stepped between them, wiping the blood from her lips. "I'm sorry, Bill. That wasn't my intention. I just wanted to finish this properly, but there's no way to finish this right. What we had is gone, and right now I can't be around you. You need to get some help because I think Clarice might have affected you too. I'm not trying to insult you. I genuinely think there's something wrong." Then he allowed Lou to pull him away. All the hopes for a smooth separation, remembering the good times, ended like this. She thought, maybe he's right. Maybe I'm not okay. I know he makes me feel unsettled. Friday, August 19th, 12:30 p.m. I needed to return to work to prepare for Judy Johansson's trial the following week, but Lou was insistent and wouldn't let up. Finally, to get him out of my office, I said, "All right, let me get back to work. It's just one more day, but if you won't leave, we can go to Pelicans tonight. I should be done by 6 or 7. Give me an hour and a half for the gym. Let's say 9 p.m. I'll meet you there." As he walked out of my office, I took a moment to put my head in my hands and take a deep breath. It felt like dark clouds were hanging above me. Something good in my life had come to an end today. I wanted to build a new future for myself, but I felt as though I had lost something important. It was just another day, but it should mean more. I thought I should collect my memories of my marriage and perhaps honor them in some way. So I decided to spend time with Lou tonight. He would try to lift my spirits with distractions. I neither needed nor wanted that. 20 years of mostly happy times in a marriage deserved a night for reflection and sadness. But Lou would try. He was a good friend, better than I deserved. I felt restless and needed a moment to figure out why. I got up and opened the curtain of the big window in my office. It faced north, giving me a view of the city skyline, partially blocked by the courthouse and the state attorney's office. Most of the skyline was in the south, but far to the north was Blount Island, where cruise ships come and go. Today marked the end of the Bonchance's month-long stay in Jacksonville. In about 4 hours, it would leave for Miami and beyond. I had seen that ship from cars passing by and from the sidewalk far below my office. I watched the activity around it, sometimes imagining connections that would never happen. I had to fight the urge to go see it up close when it docked. What harm could it do? Philippe was far away and living his own life. She would never leave him, so wishing for something impossible seemed pointless. It had been almost a month since I had really shared my life with anyone. I felt silly. I had run into Sheila a couple of times, and each encounter reminded me of what I missed. Myra had been around during my visits and gave me knowing looks. Heather and I continued to work on a difficult case together, which made me see the value of companionship more clearly. After Aline, I knew what could happen if I let myself reach out. But I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to connect with anyone else, and I had let her go. Soon she would be out of my life for good, and I found it hard to imagine seeing her again. I had my life, and she had hers. I thought about what she had shared and how personal her feelings were. Talking about the end of a meaningful relationship can be tough. "I don't understand it, Dr. Teller. I felt sad. It was like I was about to cry. I just wanted to talk to him. Then, suddenly, I was angry with him, even though I know I had a part in our issues. I realized that I made choices that impacted our marriage, but I ended up blaming him." Teller leaned in, showing he was listening to her feelings. "You've just ended a long-term relationship today, Mrs. Bascom. Even if you wanted things to end, it's normal to feel mixed emotions. He is the father of your children, and you once shared a deep bond. Most people enter marriage hoping it will last forever. Now it's over and something important has changed. Even if what's lost is the dream of your future together, people handle emotional pain in different ways. It's clear he was upset too. I'm still unsure where your anger comes from, but it seems linked to your Aunt Clarice's challenges. Your marriage was already facing difficulties, and those events seem to make your feelings stronger. I know things got worse, but..." He looked at her thoughtfully, trying to understand her heartache. "Have you thought about how others might see you and your ex-husband as a couple?" She took a moment to think about her past. "I know he wasn't the typical handsome man. He was shorter than me, which was always a sensitive topic for him, but he said it didn't bother him. He wasn't very sporty, but he was smart and had a great sense of humor that always made me laugh. From our first date, it was clear he had feelings for me." "I bet you've met many attractive and confident men. What attracted you to someone like your ex-husband?" She looked down, lost in thought, pondering the feelings of attraction and connection. "I started developing at a young age. I was 13 and already looked older. Despite my parents' efforts, I found myself in relationships with older people. By the time I was 15, I had been through various experiences, some with much older men. One was a family friend who had given me a gift that my father would not have liked. Having relationships at that age seemed normal. Before high school, I didn't think too much about it. When I got to university, many attractive people were interested in me without me having to chase them. It's like owning a restaurant. When you have a lot of choices, the special dishes don't feel as exciting anymore. What matters is what you really enjoy. I understood that Bill was different from many of my past relationships. I wanted him in my life. He made me happy. After all we went through together, I saw it was more than just physical attraction. I knew relationships could change, but I believed Bill was unique. But he often felt unsure about himself compared to others I had been with. Did his worries ever make me doubt our relationship? Sometimes, yes. I could see it in his eyes when others showed interest in me. I liked the attention. There were times I wanted to tell him that I was with him because I chose to be. I wasn't looking at anyone else, I was committed to him. I wanted him to fully embrace our relationship and not feel like he deserved any less love from me. Watching her, Teller realized there were deeper issues at play. Maitland's feelings of insecurity were quietly harming his relationship with his wife, and it was a sad truth. Debbie rubbed her eyes, feeling the heaviness of her thoughts. "Doctor, I've been coming here often for the past month. I know you've helped, but sometimes I wonder if it's worth it. I don't love my husband anymore, and no matter how we got to this point, it's where we are. I understand what led to our marriage's troubles, but it feels beyond repair. What's the use?" "You can stop coming here whenever you want, Mrs. Bascom. Whenever you feel ready to handle the pain in your life, there's no need to continue. But if you do stop, remember that fixing your marriage isn't the main reason for your visits. You have feelings, and those feelings have been causing you pain. If you discover the root of those feelings, you can start to address them. You may accept the end of your marriage and be able to move on. You might find that what you really feel is different from what you think you feel. We can sometimes misinterpret our emotions. If you were truly okay with the end of your marriage, if you had come to terms with it and were ready to start fresh, you would. You're still a young woman and you are very attractive. You could meet someone new. But right now, even though you could move on and say you want to, you haven't. That shows me you are struggling with feelings you're not ready to face. Why does life have to be so confusing, Doctor? Why can't things just be simple?" He smiled, and she recognized how much she had come to like him over the past month. "Because if life were simple, I and other doctors like me would have to find real jobs, maybe in emergency medicine. I like working in comfort, away from chaos." Friday, August 19th, 9 p.m. I stepped inside and looked around. Pelicans wasn't too crowded at this hour, but it was still lively. I had on light blue slacks and a light blue shirt. Wearing darker colors would have felt too heavy. As usual, when I entered, I paused to glance around. I've never been much of a party person, and unless I really feel relaxed, I tend to hang back a little. It felt like going to a school dance where I didn't know anyone. Not spotting Lou, I made my way to the bar and was about to order a drink when I felt a tap on my shoulder and caught a familiar scent. I turned around and saw Mona Walter's dark eyes. She was about as tall as I was, with black hair that looked quite different from Aline's. I could see right away that she looked lovely in a classic little black dress, with her high heels hanging from one finger. As always, a small smile rested on her lips, like she was in on a private joke. Lou and I called it her Mona Lisa smile because it reminded us of that famous painting. She was a good match for Lou. They were both very smart, young, without kids, and they were both lawyers. You couldn't find a better pair than that. She leaned closer and softly spoke into my ear. "Lou mentioned you've been having a tough time, but it seems to suit you, even if you look a bit worn out. I was really sorry to hear about you and Debbie." I thought about reaching out to both of you, but I wasn't sure what to say. I held my drink in one hand and her hand in mine as I said, "How about better luck next time? Just kidding. I didn't think you'd have the time. Every time I look for you, you're off to another country or a charity event. It's a wonder you and Lou find time to meet." Her smile faded a bit as she replied, "I wonder about that too. But I want you to know I'm here for you if you want to talk or need some support." I appreciated her kindness and felt a bond between us. "Thanks, Mona, but I'll be fine. They say life goes on." She said, "Lou is a lucky guy, and I keep telling him that." She hugged me and added, "You're quite the charmer, and you have good taste. I know it's early, but I have some friends I could let know about a great guy who is available, if you're interested." I shook my head and smiled weakly. "Thanks, Mona, but it's too soon for me. I just want to focus on my job and my kids, and maybe take some time to heal." Before I knew it, I found myself saying, "Speaking of which." I knew that kids were a sensitive topic for them, and I noticed a change in her expression. "No, Bill, I guess that's not in the plans for us anymore." I pulled her close again to offer comfort. "Kids are overrated, Mona. Debbie and I had our struggles with our daughter growing up, and I'm still figuring things out with my son. You two are young. Anything can still happen. You're successful. You're in love. You're luckier than many." "Yeah, we're lucky," she said, wiping away a tear. "Lucky at what?" Lou asked, arriving with drinks. "Oh, Bill, Mona just flew in from Washington a few hours ago. When she found out we were hanging out, she wanted to join us. Hope you don't mind? She's definitely a welcome addition to our gathering," I said, glad she was there. "For that, Mr. Maitland, you get the joy of my company," she joked, reaching for my drink and handing it to Lou, who balanced it with the others he held. "Find us a table, dear, and when Bill gets tired, I might give you a dance." He just smiled at her and glanced at two tall women at the bar, saying, "Don't worry, if I feel lonely, I think I have 2 dance partners ready." "In your dreams. You wouldn't be able to handle one of them, and if you tried for both, you'd need a break." He smiled again and walked away, saying, "But what a way to go." They had live music about 4 nights a week, and a talented 3-piece band played hits from the 90s and today. The music was lively, but Mona and I danced together like 2 old friends. She fit perfectly with me. "You think you and Debbie? Not a chance." Lou won't tell me, and if he can resist temptation, he can resist anything, but he hinted that. What she did would be hard to forget. "Did you get any recordings of her with that professor boyfriend? Is that why you can't forgive her?" "That's between me and her, Mona. The truth is, I can't forget, and she doesn't want to either. The divorce was her choice. The boyfriend was her choice. When she called to tell me she was leaving, she said she didn't love me anymore. That really says it all. Why try again?" "Sometimes people aren't honest." "People aren't honest all the time, Mona. If they were, Lou and I would be looking for jobs." "Mind if I join you?" I glanced over Mona's shoulder and saw Sheila standing behind her. She was a little shorter than Mona, dressed in a bright red dress. Mona turned to look at Sheila, and something passed between them without words. She turned back to me with a smile and whispered, "And so it begins," before walking away. Sheila stepped closer, and I extended my hands to her. "You don't mind if I join you, do you?" she asked with a smile. "No, not at all." She moved in close, and we began to sway to the music. Mona had been more graceful, but Sheila had her own way of dancing, leaning against me as we moved to the beat. "I'm not interested in you because of your job," she said, looking into my eyes. "I just wanted you to know that. I'm not trying to get anything by being here." "I never thought you were, Sheila. But you've been at the office for a year. There was never a sign that, well, you know, I never thought about you that way. You. No need to explain. A friend once said I have the charm of a potato. Not every girl's dream, but I'm still older than you. What are you, 25, 26, 24? Wow. I could be your father if I'd started younger. You know how old I am, right? 41, but you're not my father." We smiled as we shared this moment. "No, you're definitely not my father. Some girls like older men." "I shouldn't ask, but I have to. You're a beautiful young woman. I know there are guys your age who would be excited to be with you. I've changed a bit, but I'm not exactly a heartthrob. If you didn't like me then, why do you now?" "A few reasons. You've changed a lot. You look younger. You're more active now. It's clear to see." She blushed slightly. "I know that sounds odd, but women notice these things. And you've gained a certain confidence. I can't think of another way to say it. You were always a nice guy, but now you seem more self-assured. Your experiences have really helped you." "And that's a good thing? That I'm different now?" "If I wanted a mentor or a boss, I would prefer the old version, but right now you're interesting." As she moved closer, I felt a wave of emotions. I quickly decided to take a step back, trying to act relaxed. She looked at me with curiosity. "I'm sorry, Sheila. It's clear you have my attention. If you weren't working at the state attorney's office and if this wasn't such a sensitive time for me, I would feel differently. I just lost my wife of nearly 20 years. It hasn't even been half a day since I was married. It's just too early for me. I'm not interested in you because of your job, Bill. I'm not saying you are, but I've seen a lot of workplace situations over the years. A supervisor dating a subordinate rarely ends well. We couldn't keep it quiet, and people would have feelings about it. And if things didn't work out, would it change how we interact at work? I wouldn't want that to happen." Even if we just shared one moment, it would change the way we see each other. So while I am tempted, I know that if we were to meet up in the future and you weren't working here, then who knows? But you should know it's not because I don't want to. She stepped back and was about to join a group of girls her age when she stopped. Okay, Mr. Maitland, do the right thing, but if I had ever gotten close to you, it would have been quite the adventure. As she walked away, I quietly said to myself, I believe that, Miss Simpson. I really do. After that, I had a few more drinks, and though I felt their effects, I managed to step outside for some fresh air with Lou's help. I danced with Mona, who playfully flirted with me, helping to lift my spirits and making me forget any lingering worries. I also danced with a tall blonde, a short brunette, and two red-headed twins from a nearby law firm. Some of them knew who I was, while others treated me like just another guy. Even looking a bit messy didn't seem to bother them as they danced with me. That felt nice. I thought about Debbie a few times, curious about what she was up to. Around 1 a.m., I told Lou and Mona that I had a great time, but I needed to head to the gym. My work and my divorce were starting to weigh on my mind. Lou reminded me that I had already been, but I replied that some days I managed to go twice. Besides, if Carlos was around, I might join him for a few rounds. It had been a while since I'd been there. Lou pointed out that I wasn't in any shape to work out considering how I was feeling. I argued that I didn't need to be steady to ride a stationary bike. Our conversation drifted, and the next thing I knew, I woke up alone in my bed at 3 a.m. with tears on my cheeks for reasons I couldn't quite understand. Then everything faded away again. Friday, August 19th, 9 p.m. Hi, Clint. She paused the DVD player. You okay? Yeah. How did it go today? Is it over? Yeah, it's over. 18 years of marriage and 20 years of knowing him, and now it's done. Why don't you sound happy? I don't know. Maybe because a guy I thought I'd grow old with decided to end things, and I made mistakes. Now his life is complicated, and I should be looking ahead. Instead, I'm here watching old DVDs and wondering how it all went wrong. Would you like to go out for a drink? Just to get out of there. Strictly friends. No, thank you, Clint. I need some time alone. If I go out with you, it feels like crossing a line I'm not ready for. I once had a Jewish girlfriend. You're sitting Shiva. It's a Jewish way of saying you're mourning. We're both still here. But something real changed today. You might want your freedom, but it's hard to let go. You had each other's backs for 20 years. You can't walk away from that without feeling something, even if it was your choice. After a long silence, she said, I'm sorry, Clint. You're a good friend, but I just don't feel like talking right now. Have a good night. Don't stay out too late. Remember, tomorrow is a new day. She settled back and clicked the DVD player back on. They were standing by the railing, watching the sun set over the Pacific Ocean. It was cool, and she wore a lovely top while he was in a tuxedo. It was the night of the captain's formal dinner and dance, the 9th day out from Los Angeles heading to Oahu. The cruise director with the video camera said, "Link your arms and sip from each other's glass, then make a toast." They followed her instructions, laughing together as he made a goofy face. Don't do that, Bill. This is for our memories. We'll share this with our future family on our 50th anniversary, she joked. Can you do that again? Don't bother, Bill replied. He leaned in a bit and shared a brief moment before looking into the camera. She thought he looked very young. I want them to see how we were, babe. We weren't perfect, but we were young and in love. When we're old, I want them to know we lived a beautiful story together. She turned off the DVD and cried. Saturday, August 20th, 2 a.m. She tossed in bed, her heart pounding. Something scary felt like it was in the room with her. It was one of those dreams where you know you have to wake up or you will feel trapped, but you just can't open your eyes. And even worse, she sensed that she was completely alone in the house. Everyone was gone. Except for her, and that strange feeling around her. Suddenly, she found herself kneeling on the hard ground, confused. The air felt heavy, and she couldn't fully grasp what was happening. Shadows moved around her, and distant whispers filled her ears, making her heart race. She blinked, trembling, as something held her shoulders, making her stay still. The whispers got louder, but she couldn't understand what they were saying. Panic built up inside her, and she tried to speak, but no words came out. The situation grew more intense, slipping into a blur in her mind, and her surroundings felt overwhelming. She struggled to make sense of it, feeling weak and confused. She felt a sudden jolt as she was pushed to the ground, her head hitting the hard floor. The shock made her dizzy, and her vision started to fade while the whispers echoed around her. She lay there, unable to move, until everything turned dark. You don't want to be looking over your shoulder for the next 6 months. Just face what's happening. She felt herself being held down, confusion and fear swirling in her mind. The air felt tense, and everything became jumbled. Rough hands gripped her, keeping her in place while she tried to understand. Suddenly, she felt cold and sick, as if something bad had happened. She tried to speak, but her voice wouldn't work, and her body felt heavy. A deep sense of unease filled her as she sank to the floor. Lying there, confused, she faintly heard laughter all around her. She tried to push herself up, but her strength was gone, and she stayed still, her mind racing with confusion and distress. A heavy feeling of embarrassment hung over her, even though she couldn't quite remember what had happened. As she began to wake up, she found herself in her bedroom, disheveled and feeling nauseous. A bitter taste filled her mouth, making her stomach churn. She barely reached the bathroom in time before she collapsed by the toilet, feeling sick. Her whole body hurt from the strain. She couldn't understand how she had forgotten that night. It felt like a bad dream she had pushed away from her mind. If only she had told Bill. Even with their troubled marriage, he would have tried to help her, but she hadn't told him. She had forgotten until now. The next morning, she woke up feeling tired and weak. The after effects of the nightmare weighed on her, but she couldn't remember it clearly. All she held on to was a sense of fear, something terrible still in her thoughts. She lay in bed for hours, unable to find the energy to get up, wondering if she was simply unwell, or if the memories from that awful night were too hard to take in. She felt so bad that she didn't even attempt to think about it. With nowhere to go on a Saturday, she fell back asleep. There was no one in the house to hear her cries. Saturday, August 2011 a.m. I couldn't sleep past 9 a.m., so I got up and went to Hurley's gym, spending nearly 2 hours exercising until I felt worn out. Even though my arms and legs felt heavy, working out made me feel better. Staying fit was now a part of my life. I had been unhealthy and rather naive when I was married to Debbie. Now I was getting stronger, feeling quite down at times, but thought I had a more realistic view on life. I might never be truly happy again, but I could find joy in the little things and focused on what I was good at. If Teller was right, I had given up my happiness for something bigger. Now that happiness felt out of reach, I wanted to make the most of the time I had left. I was in my office finishing up a case I had taken on. Cheryl and most of the team were absent, but a few dedicated people like me came in when the office was quiet to get things done. With no one to screen my calls, I answered the phone whenever it rang. Is this Mr. William Maitland from the District Attorney's Office in Jacksonville, Florida? The voice had an Irish accent that reminded me of Father Dunleavy, but it was polite yet a bit sharp. I sensed some tension. This call did not promise to be friendly. Yes, who am I speaking with? I'm Connor O'Collins. I'm calling to ask you to leave my family alone. I paused, waiting to see if he would hang up, but he stayed on the line without saying anything more. I didn't mean to trouble you or your family, Mr. O'Collins. You certainly have. I didn't answer your calls at my work, and somehow you found my home number. When I stopped answering your calls, you reached out to friends of our family in the District of Public Prosecutions in Dublin to get their help. Those friends and one of my wife's acquaintances asked me to speak with you. I am unsure what kind of influence you have, but my family is well known in Ireland, and officials usually avoid upsetting us. They've said they can't change your mind, and you'll keep troubling me until I talk to you. I would prefer not to. Mr. O'Collins, I don't want to cause you any trouble. If you will talk to me for a few minutes today, I promise I won't contact you or your family again. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I was given Philippe d'Archambault's name in Paris. Friends at the District of Public Prosecution said he knows you. I spoke to him, and he described you as a dedicated prosecutor and suggested I should speak with you directly. So here I am. You know I'm calling about Egan Dunleavy. That's not a subject I want to discuss, Mr. Maitland. He left my mother when she was pregnant, which caused her great pain. He chose his career over our family. I didn't even know he existed until I was an adult. He did eventually reach out, but my feelings haven't changed. He never wanted me in his life. Your attempt to reach me is confusing since he's passed away. What is the importance of this now? Mr. O'Collins, I met your father on a cruise on the French ship Bon Chance. I won't share too many details, but we did connect. He shared some things about your mother and your life. I believe he spoke honestly about his feelings. He shared how he regretted leaving your mother but felt a calling to a different life. He didn't know how much your mother was suffering, and I believe he would have reached out if he had understood how serious things were. It sounded like he regretted his choice and felt the weight of his actions. When he discovered he had a son, he tried to reach out but claimed your uncle stopped him. An interesting story, Mr. Maitland. So you believe everything he said without question? I find it hard to believe my family would have led me wrong. They told me he was not interested in me or my mother after he left. I can't confirm his story, but I do know he had a picture of your mother in his wallet and a newspaper clipping of you receiving an award. He said he carried those with him all the time, and I believe that. Why do you think he did that? I contacted some connections in Interpol and the French prosecutor's office right after the crash and asked them to let me know if they found anything at the crash site. I received a call the next day saying they found his wallet. His body was unharmed when the plane crashed and was thrown away from the wreckage. He still had his wallet on him. I walked with the phone to a fax machine in the office and asked him for his fax number. "Why do you need it?" he asked. "I want to send you something. I assume you have a fax at home. Is that where you are?" He gave me the number, and I sent several documents to him. He stood by the machine and told me the pictures were coming through. "I have them, Mr. Maitland," he said. Then he went silent. The first picture is of your mother taken years before her passing when they were planning to marry. The other one is of you, taken when I received an award for my family's work helping the less fortunate in Dublin. I was 26, but these could have been taken. Those are the photos he showed me on the Bon Chance. He kept them with him always, I was told. He had them with him when he died. I wonder why a man would hold on to pictures of two people he cared about. After a moment, I said, "Talk to your grandfather and your uncles. A lot of time has passed. Your mother and father are both gone. I think you deserve to know the truth about your father. If they really care about you, they will stop keeping secrets." His tone changed. "What good will it do now, Mr. Maitland? Old memories and pain? He's gone. You have a family, and I hear you have 2 teenage kids. Don't you think they deserve to know their roots, that their grandfather was a good man? He is part of your story, just like your mother. I believe he would want you to know that the distance between you has been shortened. He must have made quite an impression on you, Mr. Maitland, for you to go to all this effort." "He truly did, Mr. O'Collins. In many ways, he was an extraordinary man. Now it's your decision. Do what you think is best. I hope you find the truth. I made a promise, though, and I won't trouble you again. Thank you for speaking with me." I hung up and leaned back in my chair. I opened the left drawer and took out an iPod I had bought for Kelly before her then-boyfriend got her the same one. I had kept mine and added a few songs I enjoyed. I reclined in the chair, closed my eyes, and listened to a favorite tune. As the final words faded away, "If tomorrow never comes." I felt grateful to Father Dunleavy for reminding me what truly matters in this life. If I were to pass away today, the 2 people I loved most would never doubt my feelings for them. Despite the struggles I had faced in the last 4 months, knowing this made it all worthwhile.
Hey there, boys and girls. I am the story guy. Thanks for listening. The story doesn't end here. There's more to uncover, more secrets to expose, and more crazy stuff to share on the way. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. We're just getting started.